Australians, all let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, all beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you. Please be seated. Good evening, councillors, council officers and members of the public. Welcome to tonight's ordinary meeting of the Hillshire Council, this being the 11th of August 2026. This public meeting is required to be live streamed on council's website, and a person's image and or their voice may be broadcast. This is outlined in the Local Government General Amendment Meetings Regulation 2026. Attendance at this meeting is to be taken as consent by a person to their image and or their voice being live streamed. If any person attending this meeting, including members of the public, do not agree to being live streamed, you can choose to leave this meeting before the meeting starts. Council accepts no liability for any damage that may result from defamatory comments made by persons attending this meeting. All liability will rest with the individual who made the comments. The recording will be published and made available on the council's website for the balance of the council's term or 12 months, whichever is the longer period. In addition, the recording will be retained as a council record. Members of the public are afforded the privilege of attending this meeting to witness the council making its decisions. Individuals acting in a disorderly manner can be asked to leave the meeting. Members of the public must remain silent, must not bring flags, signs or protest material, and must not disrupt the meeting. As we get underway, can everyone please ensure that their mobile phones are on silent? The person must not live stream or use an audio recorder, video camera, mobile phone or any other device to make a recording or to photograph these proceedings unless you have prior authorisation of the council. I'd like to begin the meeting by acknowledging traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. And as I'm accustomed to doing so, I'd also like to acknowledge our veterans and all those who have and who are currently serving our great nation. Tonight's prayer will be given by Janine Toomey of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If you'd like to come forward.
Thank you. Forgive me, I'm a little bit nervous. This is my first public appearance
Don't be nervous.
as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But I'm pleased to be invited here to represent our church and to share a thought with you and then to share a prayer. The immediate thought that came to mind was about counselling. We were going to a counselling meeting, and in our organisation, our church is very structured and very organised, and we have regular meetings with our male and female leaders for our youth and our young adults and our adult populations. And I currently am serving as volunteer, and I look after the women in the adult organisation, and currently we have about 600 women in our stewardship in the area that I serve in. So about councils, I love that I get to counsel with, I have a presidency and I get to counsel with my presidency, and we get to counsel with our male counterparts, and we get to counsel with our senior leaders, and it's a very important function for us in our church, and it's a very spiritual function too. We always start our meetings like these. I did not know you did this in council, but we always start our meetings with a prayer, and we invite the Spirit to be with us so that we can feel inspired and get revelation to help those that we serve. And I just wanted to share that with you. I appreciate the importance of what you do here, and I appreciate that you are starting this meeting with a prayer. So on that note, just for your reference. Our prayers aren't usually written out. They're not scripted, they're from the heart, but again, because of my nerves, I felt that the need to write down the thoughts that I have to pray for this particular meeting, so bear with me. But let us pray. Our dear, kind, loving Heavenly Father, we are grateful for the opportunity to gather together this evening as thy sons and daughters in this part of thy vineyard to discuss the requirements of the community that thou hast blessed us with. We invite the Holy Spirit to abide throughout this meeting and to allow those present to knit hearts and minds together as they counsel together to make decisions that will benefit our community. We pray for patience, understanding, wisdom, and the spirit of collaboration. We are grateful for those leaders in our community, particularly those here tonight, who work hard and strive to make this council a wonderful, desirable and safe place to live. We pray that they may always be seeking the right and honourable way to conduct business and for the strength to carry out their demanding, difficult and important roles. We are grateful for this beautiful land in which we live, that thou hast created for us, and pray that thou will endeavour to take good care of it and to fulfil the needs of those who live within these council boundaries. We pray a special blessing upon those in our community who are in the greatest need at this time. May we have the clarity, charity and wisdom to know how to best help them. And finally, we pray for peace and prosperity in this area. We love thee, Lord, and acknowledge thy hand in all things. And we open this meeting with our humble prayer in the name of our beloved Saviour, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you for your company at dinner. Not sure why you were nervous, because you did a fantastic job. Well done. And thank you for your service to our community as well. We really, truly appreciate what you and others in your church do. And say hello to Kimball for me. We miss him. But thank you so much for being here. We now move to item 1, confirmation of the minutes, ordinary meeting of council, 28th of July 2026. Moved by Councillor Bonham, second by Councillor Massey. Is there any debate? No debate. I'll put those minutes. All those in favour say aye. Those against, those minutes are carried. Thank you, councillors. No apologies this evening. All councillors are accounted for. Are there any declarations of interest this evening? Councillor Blue?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be declaring a significant non-pecuniary interest in item number 6, being the annual community grants and arts and culture and event grants, as I am a patron of an organisation that is recommended for funding this evening, and I will be leaving the room.
Thank you. Councillor Uno?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would also like to declare a significant non-pecuniary conflict of interest for item number 6, as I'm the president of Hills Community Aid, who are applying for a grant. I too will be leaving the room.
Thank you. Any other declarations? I'll also declare a conflict of interest on item 6. I think it's a non-significant, non-pecuniary conflict of interest, being the patron of Hills Community Aid.
Madam Mayor, on that part, I would also like to declare non-pecuniary interest as significant as I am of one of the bowling clubs, the Hills Bowling Club.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations, councillors? No further declarations. We move to mayoral minutes. Mayoral minute number 25/2026. Council calls for infrastructure of certainty following the Cherrybrook rezoning. Councillors, the New South Wales Government's decision to finalise the Cherrybrook precinct rezoning represents one of the most dramatic departures from a previously adopted place strategy that this community has ever seen. Rather than listening to concerns of local residents, the government has once again bent over backwards to accommodate developer yield and density aspirations, approving outcomes that are significantly larger in scale than what was originally promised to our community. While Council recognises the need for additional housing, growth must be accompanied by genuine infrastructure delivery, transport capacity, schools and community facilities. Unfortunately, the final rezoning approved by the New South Wales Government delivers substantially more density than originally promised, while leaving major infrastructure questions unanswered. What is particularly concerning is that the community was originally consulted on a place strategy that planned for approximately 3,200 additional dwellings. The final rezoning now permits up to 10,000 homes, more than tripling the original number. This represents a fundamental shift in the planning outcomes and far exceeds what residents were led to expect when the Cherrybrook Place strategy was adopted. Equally troubling is that the final rezoning increases building heights, despite height and density being the most frequently raised concerns during the community consultation. Rather than responding to community feedback by reducing scale and intensity, the final outcome permits buildings up to 27 storeys around Cherrybrook Metro Station. In parts of the hills, the government exhibited plans showing buildings up to 18 storeys in height, yet has now finalised plans allowing up to 26 storeys in height without any further consultation. In effect, the government has exhibited a draft plan, the community has raised concerns about excessive height and density, and the government's response has been to ignore it all and approve more of both. The final outcome also raises serious questions about the planning philosophy underpinning this proposal. It is time to put the planning back into the Department of Planning, Housing and Infrastructure. The Minister for Planning appears increasingly focused on planning in two dimensions: draw a circle around a metro station, maximise housing yield within it, and call it a transport-orientated development, TOD. But genuine transport-orientated development is far more sophisticated than that. It considers topography, land constraints, built form transitions, infrastructure capacity, employment opportunities, open space, community facilities, and the overall character of a place. Cherrybrook is not a flat blank canvas. It is a unique suburb characterised by significant environmental features and established residential neighbourhoods. Yet these factors appear to have been treated as obstacles to overcome rather than assets to be respected. A true TOD is not simply about building as many apartments as possible around a train station. It is about creating a genuine mix of homes, jobs, services, recreation and community facilities that reduce the need to travel in the first place. What has been approved for Cherrybrook is housing-led development, not integrated planning. Rather than listening to urban planners, local councils and the community, the government appears increasingly influenced by those whose primary objective is maximising development yield. Long after the property industry's advocates have moved on to their next campaign, the consequences of poor planning decisions will remain. The residents of Cherrybrook and West Pennant Hills will be left living with the impact for generations. It is also disappointing that the opposition has remained largely silent on the issue. Residents have every right to ask, where is the outrage? Where is the advocacy for communities that are being asked to absorb unprecedented growth without corresponding commitments to roads, schools, open space and public transport capacity? The people of Cherrybrook and West Pennant Hills deserve better than housing at any cost. They deserve growth that is properly planned, properly funded and properly supported by the infrastructure required to make a community function. The New South Wales Government cannot continue approving significant increases in housing while treating transport infrastructure as secondary, nice-to-have consideration. Castle Road and New Line Road are already heavily congested during peak periods. Every resident who travels these roads know that congestion is not a future problem, it's today's reality. The addition of up to 10,000 homes will place enormous additional pressure on an already strained road network. Yet the community has not been provided with any certainty of when critical upgrades to these roads will be funded and delivered. While various funding mechanisms, programs and future contributions have been touted as potential solutions, they do little to provide the community with confidence that the roads, parks, sporting fields and community facilities need to support this growth will actually be funded and delivered in time to support this unprecedented population growth. We've seen this time and time again from government in Box Hill, Showground Precinct, Bella Vista Precinct, Kellyville Precinct and now the Cherrybrook Precinct. If the New South Wales Government is willing to approve 10,000 homes a day, it should also be willing to guarantee the infrastructure needed to support those homes. Perhaps the most disappointing aspect of the final rezoning is a lack of certainty around school infrastructure. The New South Wales Government has acknowledged that a new primary school will ultimately be acquired, yet no site has been identified and no acquisition process has commenced. Instead, the solution appears to rely on upgrades to existing schools and the possibility of a new primary school sometime after 2041. Without any plan in place to fund or achieve this. This is not planning. It is postponing a problem for someone else to solve. Our experience in other precincts demonstrates exactly why this should concern residents the most. In the Showground Precinct, the need for a new school was identified nearly 10 years ago, and yet the government has still not secured a site. Once land is developed, opportunities to acquire school sites become increasingly difficult and expensive. If the New South Wales Government does not identify and secure a site now, the community risks ending up with thousands of new homes but no new local primary school to support them. The entire justification for this level of density rests on the precinct's proximity to Cherrybrook Metro Station. However, residents know that proximity to a station means very little if the trains are already full. The reality is that during peak periods, metro services are often operating at or near capacity before they even reach Cherrybrook. While new cycling paths and pedestrian links are welcome, they do nothing to address the simple fact that the metro is already full by the time it arrives at Cherrybrook. Council has constantly supported well-planned growth. What Council cannot support is growth without certainty around the infrastructure required to make communities work. The Cherrybrook community was promised a carefully planned precinct supported by transport, schools, park and community infrastructure. Instead, the New South Wales Government has approved a significantly larger development outcome while leaving most of the important infrastructure questions unanswered. Residents deserve confidence that infrastructure will keep pace with growth, and Council will continue to advocate strongly on behalf of our community to ensure the Government knows this is not what was envisaged and not what we want for the Cherrybrook precinct. Accordingly, I move that this Mayoral Minute be received. 2. Council write to the Minister of Planning and Public Spaces, the Minister of Roads, the Minister for Education and the Minister of Transport, calling on the New South Wales Government to A. Provide certainty regarding the timing and funding of upgrades to Castle Road, New Line Road and other supporting transport infrastructure. B. Ensure infrastructure contributions are sufficient to fund the roads, parks, playing fields and community facilities required to support the future population. C. Identify and secure a site for a future primary school as a matter of priority. And D. Provide a clear strategy outlining how Sydney Metro capacity issues will be addressed to accommodate the additional population generated by this precinct. Councillor Massey.
Madam Mayor, I rise strongly in support of this Mayoral Minute. What has happened with the Cherrybrook precinct is absolutely outrageous. The community was consulted on a plan for approximately 3,200 additional homes, and the government has now approved a precinct of up to 10,000 homes. And we're not talking about flat land either, we're talking about land which slopes. And you're going to have buildings up to 27 stories high. Absolutely outrageous. Madam Mayor, it's clear that the government doesn't listen to the community. They even tried to push this through in December and only gave so much little notice to the community or council that they were going to go ahead with this. And now they've come out, and I think we saw it in the press again before it was even mentioned. We've got any official advice on this, which is again absolutely outrageous. So the government is actually running roughshod on not only this council but also on the community as well. Madam Mayor, the government can approve 10,000 homes. They should have but they should answer questions about where is the infrastructure. So great, you can approve homes, but there's no infrastructure. What are they going to do about Castle Hill Road? Castle Hill Road, it's a nightmare now. You can't even move along Castle Hill Road. And what are they going to do to upgrade that? What are they going to do about New Line Road? And again, we have lots and lots of complaints about New Line Road and how it's congested. Where are the additional parks, sporting fields, community facilities going to be? And most importantly, where is the school? So as you mentioned, we've got a school missing. Same thing in Showground. We're promised a school there, and there's all these buildings appearing. We've got Castle Hill High School at over 200% capacity with 51 demandables. 51 demandables. Absolutely outrageous. The government, in its wisdom, listed Castle Hill Public School in their budget, but there was no dollars against it. So it's great to mention them, but what are you going to do about it? Madam Mayor, this is completely unacceptable. We're always seeing what happens when governments approve growth first and worry about infrastructure later. It's the cart before the horse again. We've seen in Box Hill, we've seen in Showground, Bella Vista and Kellyville, and who's to say that on top of this you're going to get somebody go go to the HDA and have something else approved, which is bigger and as they've done in over at Bella Vista, where we've got over a 40-storey building which is about to be built over there. Absolutely outrageous. As far as you can draw a circle around the metro station, and you can say that all these homes, it's going to be great because we've already got the infrastructure, we've got the metro. But as you said, Madam Mayor, that metro that train is already full by the time it gets to Cherrybrook. So what are they going to do? It's just creating a bigger and bigger problem. Madam Mayor, this council is not opposed to housing, but we are opposed to housing without infrastructure. We're opposed to approving the population first and leaving the community to fight for roads, schools and facilities afterwards, as you saw with our recent campaign, as we're doing not just for this precinct, but the precincts all around the Shire, because infrastructure is lacking. You just can't keep on pushing the problem of solving the housing crisis without addressing the infrastructure crisis that we have. Madam Mayor, I fully support your mayoral minute, and I believe our message to New South Wales Government needs to be absolutely clear. You want to approve 10,000 homes, you need to commit to infrastructure for 10,000 homes. So no vague promises, no future possibilities, no let's look at it later. They've got to come to the table now, Madam Mayor. We need funding, timeframes, secured land and delivery commitments. The people of Cherrybrook and West Pennant Hills deserve nothing less. They are absolutely being denied their opportunity. They're being denied a service, Madam Mayor. Again, I fully support your mayoral minute, and this is absolutely outrageous.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Hazelden.
West Pennant Hills, and I've watched this situation emerge over the last few months, the last half year. Population of West Pennant Hills, which is the suburb south of Castle Hill Road, which is obviously included in the Cherrybrook precinct development, has a current population of something around 13,000 people. We are talking about an extra 20,000, assuming there's roughly 2 people to one of these dwelling units, upwards of 20,000 people. And I don't think the community, apart from a few individuals, have even begun to grasp the magnitude of what is going to happen. This is like putting the Gold Coast on Castle Hill Road. The Department of Planning reports refer to walkable communities all the time. People just should, you need to walk up Glenhope Road and make a decision yourself as to whether that's what you want as a walkable community. These are steep rises, Madam Mayor. This is Councillor Damasi used the term outrageous. I don't think there are enough superlatives. This is such an extraordinary situation that I cannot believe it's got to this point without widespread community outrage. If we could harness just a fraction of the enthusiasm that the Fred Caddison people are directing towards the development of an innocuous issue like that, towards addressing this particular issue, we'd be a lot further ahead as a community. This is a disastrous situation, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelden. Any further speakers? No further speakers? Oh, there's now hands everywhere. Councillor Uno.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I just couldn't hear you over the actual gallery speaking.
Ask the gallery to remain silent. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Uno.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay.
Continue.
Madam Mayor, I rise in strong support of your mayoral minute. Unfortunately, this government and Minister Scully is demonstrating the hubris of a government that may have been around for like 12 to 16 years. Complete disregard for the voices of the residents of West Pennant Hills, Cherrybrook and beyond, Madam Mayor. We had, going back several years ago, just to give a bit of a history lesson for some of the councillors that may not have been around back then, but there was, when the metro was being planned, the government at the time was working in partnership with the councils. They asked us to present our plans for the Northwest Corridor and what we envisaged that, well, obviously, I mean, this other side of Castle Hill Road, being West Pennant Hills, could accommodate It was open dialogue, open communication. And with that open dialogue, the Department of Planning, who were guiding the government at the time, advised that they recommended within that new catchment 3,200 dwellings. And that was reasonable. So West Pennant Hills was meant to accommodate medium density. You know, some low-rise townhouses. That made sense for the slopes, the gradients of Hyes Road and Canara Avenue and Glenhope. Because it's living on Hyes Road at the time and walking to the metro, largely impossible to do during the summer heat. You would be sweating up a storm. So it was not a walkable catchment, as what Councillor Hazelden was stated. We're talking 10,000 dwellings, Madam Mayor, which is over threefold. What's worst of all is that they went on public exhibition. They got an influx of hundreds and hundreds, if not potentially thousands, I'm not quite sure what they were, I know definitely hundreds, of responses saying it's been overcooked. And what was their response? Let's jack it up higher. Why did we go to them with 9,000? Let's make it a like even 10. 20 to 27,000 residents, Madam Mayor. So what is 27,000 residents? Well, that would be more than the current population of Cherrybrook. So let's take the population of Cherrybrook, double it, add some more, and that's what this population is going to be of this catchment. No new schools. Where are all of the students going to be going to when we know that right now Cherrybrook Tech is at capacity and the current West Pennant Hills Public School is also at capacity with multiple demountables, Madam Mayor? Where are the kids going to play? There's no new parks that have been announced except for land that couldn't be accommodated in high rise because it's at a 30-degree slope. No new spawning fields. We know that West Pennant Hills, the residents of West Pennant Hills, of which I'm a resident, have the lowest sporting field to resident ratio out of anywhere in this shire. So where it is a land that's going to be accommodating to those residents of both our side in West Pennant Hills and also the Hornsby side within Cherrybrook. Councillor Damasi and yourself, Madam Mayor, highlighted the metro. The metro is fantastic. It's a brilliant piece of infrastructure when you can actually get on it. But with only a few hundred parking spaces, and I jumped on the metro at 5:30 on Friday morning. It was great. But when coming back and realising I was coming back in peak hour, it was bedlam. It was bedlam there. And we know that Castle Hill Road is at capacity. It fails around peak hour. But there's no accommodation for basically widening of those roads, Madam Mayor. But
Meeting search time, moved by Councillor Hazelden, second by Councillor Boyle. All those in favour say aye. Against? Continue.
But Madam Mayor, the thing that really disappoints me is that I don't believe, and maybe the question through to the General Manager, has Minister Scully, the Planning Minister, or the Opposition Planning Minister, Minister Rath, come out and walked the streets of West Pennant Hills?
Mr Edgar.
Madam Mayor, I'm not aware that either have, but I'm not aware that they haven't either.
Okay, that's fair to say. Let's make that giant leap that they haven't come to Cherrybrook, they haven't come to West Pennant Hills, they haven't experienced what it's like to be able to walk around and just. I think it's fine to see a map of Sydney. It's a flat piece of paper and draw a light circle around it, going 10,000 dwellings. Much more difficult when you actually walk and you experience the actual the topography. I endorse this this mayoral minute, Madam Mayor, and I hope it does get some traction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Uno. Councillor Savraj.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, when we discussed this Cherrybrook precinct about 6 to 9 months ago, I believe the general manager had said wanted a delay in the decision making, so the contribution plan, from memory, right? Because the mayoral minute, I'm not prepared, could be ascertained. And from memory, I believe what was in place was some kind of a agreement where we were incentivizing the developers to contribute, and therefore they will get increase in heights or so. That is the first thing. The second was there was also a geotechnical issue, and how, there's a steep gradient. So I just wanted to ask, has the contribution plan been put in place before this has been approved? And the second is, what has been the solution for that geotechnical gradient, and or has there been a solution that's been identified when this has been approved?
Yeah, it was deferred for more time to talk about contributions, but also the suitability of the site, given its topography, but also the geotechnical constraint being a landslip hazard. My understanding is that there's been a geotechnical investigation commissioned by the department. It has been released on the website. It probably would indicate to me that is leaving it to individual DAs to resolve, which was probably not what we were looking for.
Right.
And certainly if the council was doing the rezoning, it would have had it peer reviewed and made sure before you switch on a zoning for this many houses that we've actually got that constraint in line. It was always going to be a 7-12 plan, contribution plan and development incentives around floor space, achieving certain outcomes. That still is the model.
Right, okay, thank you. So while I'm not going to make a comment about the number of apartments, I do express concern, and I think I did express concern previously when we discussed it as well, about the lack of schools especially, and the fact that it is in close proximity to Castle Hill Road. I travel that road very frequently, and I just very reluctant to think about the impact that it's going to have on when the construction is going on as well. So yeah, I would definitely support the fact that we need to have infrastructure as we are looking to increase building infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you again for bringing this to the attention of Council. I, like most councillors around this chamber, I would suggest, were quite shocked on Friday morning to read that this proposal or precinct plan has been moved forward. Not only was I shocked to find out, as we seem to do with this current government, to learn through the newspaper rather than directly being communicated from Council, but I was most shocked to see that the increase in dwellings. I was of the view that, and I was probably a little bit hopeful here, that the government will take this feedback from Council and community and stakeholders on board seriously and actually reassess this proposal in its entirety. And I was probably a little bit naive in suggesting that we would see a decrease in housing. However, as we've seen an increase. Madam Mayor, I turn councillor's mind back a few years when the original precinct plan in Cherrybrook was proposed. Those councillors that were here last term would recall being given an opportunity to meet with the Department of Planning on a number of occasions and discuss what we felt would be fitting for our community. Hornsby Council were given the same opportunities, and I know that we had some robust but heated and I would say they were fruitful conversations with the department around, I know Councillor Damasi had raised comments around crossing Castle Hill Road and how that was going to be appropriately managed, given that the be-all and end-all was to use the metro. There were other concerns around the use of the traffic lights that were currently existing, and there were no further crossings going to be provided. The school issue was raised, the transport issue was raised, the playing field issues was raised. And I think collectively we came up with a solution that I'm not sure I was entirely satisfied with it, but I think I could accept it. And I think the community was somewhat receptive to the compromises that had been made. And that was for around 3,200 dwellings. So to go from 3,200 dwellings, which was a proposal heavily worked on with council, with a lot of community consultation, to now what we see as being 10,000 dwellings where the community consultation has been clearly a ticker box exercise, tick it off, put it to the side, we're not going to listen to that. There's been absolutely no justification of the 10,000. Why wasn't it 9,000? Why wasn't it 11,000? What was it? There's this magic number that seems to appear. It's appeared in Showground Precinct, it's appeared at Castle Hill, it's now appeared at Cherrybrook, this magic 10,000. That to me, Madam Mayor, is not good town planning. If you can't justify a number of dwellings, it's just picking a figure. And we do know where this has come from. This has come from the housing targets set by the federal government, and it's filtered its way down each of the states, and they've simply been given a number that they need to meet by a certain date. And that's where this has come from, to be honest. As I've said before in this chamber, I have great concern over the landslip concern. Coming from an engineering background myself, this is a significant issue that I don't believe has been appropriately addressed. And as our General Manager has just said, if this was a proposal brought to Council, a geotechnical solution would be peer reviewed, it would be part of the DA consent, and I would be almost certain in saying that this would need to be addressed in its entirety rather than being left to individual DAs. I cannot feasibly see how this landslip concern can be appropriately addressed without creating safety for those people moving into buildings into the future by doing it in piecemeal. We saw the original proposal was 2,500 square metre lots. That's been increased to 4,000. So obviously there has been some concern acknowledged by the government in this proposal. However, 4,000 is still not enough. If you've got pockets of land here, there and everywhere trying to resolve this geotechnical concern, I'm not convinced that's going to be appropriately addressed. I spoke to a resident this afternoon who was deeply concerned about the heritage impact of this proposal and that the heritage component is not being completely considered, and I completely agree with that. It seems to have gone against all heritage principles that this state works toward. Madam Mayor, I'm sure I speak on behalf of a lot of councillors around this chamber that I am sick and tired of being smashed by our community for the overdevelopment here in the hills. I don't know what it's going to take to let our residents know that this is not caused by this council. We are actively campaigning against these developments at every opportunity we are given and every opportunity we can find. But yet again, it just doesn't hit where it needs to hit. I look at town planning principles on the New South Wales government website, and I appreciate this. It's a few years old, but it talks about the Community Guide to Planning, which is of July 2023, and it talks about what type of things need to be considered in planning and what is a good plan, and it talks about regional plans, it talks about district plans. Well, we know we don't have those anymore.
Moved by Councillor Massey, second by Councillor Uno. All those in favour say aye. Against? Continue.
Thank you, councillors. We don't have long-term vision plans. We seem to have these precinct plans which pop up out of nowhere and we're expected just to suck it up and deal with it. Madam Mayor, this council has been very forthright in putting forward a number of precinct plans around these stations over a number of years. They seem to be all be turned up and thrown away. And Madam Mayor, I'll finish on one note. I've just noticed that the local government New South Wales are running a course. It's called Planning for Non-Planners. I would suggest that maybe we can have some of our government ministers, maybe Minister Scully might wish to attend that course. It's quite reasonable, and I'm sure we might get some form of discount if he would like to. I think that would be most appropriate. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Blue. Any further speakers? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to go over what everybody else has because I think there's a really important part about infrastructure that the community needs to be aware of. When these plans were finalised on the planning portal website, it came with a number of documents. One of those documents was the infrastructure schedule. And on the infrastructure schedule, it introduces it as the master plan identifies a range of infrastructure that will be needed to support the anticipated development. The infrastructure funding and delivery schedules below identify the range of potential or likely funding and delivery mechanisms that could be used to fund and deliver the infrastructure needed in the master plan. That to me doesn't provide any guarantees. It then outlines the 4 potential areas where funding can be sought. One of them is developer works, where it says works undertaken by developers, pretty straightforward. The second one is local contributions. It says development may be required to pay a contribution towards the cost of local infrastructure if it is in accordance with the local contribution plan adopted by council. This master plan obviously changes that significantly, so I'd be interested to see when we have the opportunity to do that before some of this kicks off. It says there's an incentive clause. And it says here, a clause in the local environment plan enabling the provision of additional floor space on identified sites if the development includes the provision of identified infrastructure on the relevant site. So essentially, they've identified particular parts of infrastructure that are only going to happen if the developer decides that they want to uplift on top of what they've proposed. And then the last one here, state funding, and it says this refers to state funding towards the cost of state infrastructure works delivered on behalf of agencies, and funding sources will need to be determined. So even if they've identified that state funding for each of those areas, there's still no determination on where that state funding is actually going to come from. Yeah. So, Madam Mayor, just a couple that I highlighted that I think are important for the community to be aware, and let's also remember the incentive clause is only if there's a further uplift by the developer. One of those on the list is the community centre, only if there's a further uplift. The Blue Gum High Forest, approximately 8,909 square metres of land dedication, which they've identified as Park 2. I'm not sure what's going to happen to that park if the developer doesn't decide to do anything. I'm sure we have people in the gallery at the moment that are very interested in the environment and would care to know about what's happening to the Blue Gum High Forest proposed by the state government within this space. Another incentive is Robert Road Park expansion. Approximately 825 square metres, not going to happen if the developer doesn't want it. Land dedication for new public open space being Park 3, not going to happen if the incentive clause isn't activated. That's just on the Hornsby side. On the Hillshire Council side, Park 4, 13,000 square metre park, open space, only if the incentive is activated. Land dedication for new public open space, which is Park 5, approximately 13,000 square metres. That's also under the incentive clause. And finally, at the bottom here, off-site playing fields, 2 to 3 fields, location within the Hills LGA to be determined, possible state funding. But it's interesting, they also put indicative timing along each of these particular items. And for the off-site playing fields, they're saying that they're planning for them to be provided between, and I'll just find it here so I'm accurate for the record, is, where is it? So medium to long term, they're counting this as that to those playing fields, not even guaranteed by the way, to be considered between years 11 and years 30.
Wow.
As part of delivery for this, Madam Mayor. Each of those items on the list, if we look at short term, for ones that aren't under the incentive clause, short term is counted as 1 to 10 years that it can be delivered within, and then medium is 11 to 20, which a number of these items currently sit under, and then long term is 21 to 30. And I note at the very bottom here, medium under the public transport category around bus stops to be able to support that area, medium term. So only really 11 to 20 years with the intent to develop or to provide that infrastructure that, as I outlined in the beginning statement, that those bus stops, it says here state funding, but as we see in this document, has the clause that only if that state funding is really identified.
I think it's already had an extension, hasn't he?
If it's only identified by the agencies and they're able to provide that submission for funding. So, Madam Mayor, based on the document that's provided as part of the finalised master plan, the only real guarantees of what's provided here is developer works, which isn't very extensive on the list, and also local contributions that they've indicated that may be coming from development, but clearly coming from council. So where we're going to find that money, if we don't get any of that money from the development, I don't know. I know under the HDA there's even questions about whether developers even have to give us any money to be able to support the development under that particular program. So this simply alone is quite a significant concern for me. I definitely support the Mayoral Minute in requesting further information. But I would love to see them provide some more solid commitments as part of the infrastructure that they've identified themselves is required for this particular precinct. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Casby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your Mayoral Minute. My views definitely align with yours. And thank you to Councillor Jackson for reading all the fine print. quite enlightening and incredible. And I think we're all singing from the same songbook, so I don't want to repeat everything that everyone said, but I do want to bring up the housing affordability crisis. The Greens have always strongly supported increasing housing supply to meet New South Wales's future demands where it makes sense, around metro stations such as Cherrybrook. But housing must be delivered alongside the infrastructure to support it, and it must offer genuine affordability. Instead of listening to thousands of residents and capping building heights to a human scale of 6 stories, the government has actually, as we've heard, increased the housing yield, pushing Cherrybrook to 10,000 homes. They've locked in towers reaching up to 27 stories right in the town centre. And that's almost 5 times the height allowed under the standard transport-orientated development rules. And who's this massive uplift for? It's certainly not for our key workers or mid to lower income families who are locked out of the market. We need at least 30% permanent social and affordable housing on publicly owned land. The government wants us to believe they're tackling the housing affordability crisis. They're not. If they were, they'd be building affordable homes themselves. Instead, they've capped affordability at a tiny 5 to 10% in the middle of an unprecedented housing crisis, leaving 90% of this state-led rezoning to the private market speculation developers. It's a gross failure of public policy. I agree, Madam Mayor, we also need to be building communities, not just housing. Look at the infrastructure gap. We called for land to be set aside immediately for new schools, local sports fields. The government's post-exhibition response is the promise of a primary school beyond 2041, which is 15 years away. What will 23,000 new residents be doing in the meantime? Overcrowding local public schools, straining the sports grounds, choking the roads, squeezing onto already packed metro carriages during peak hour. To their credit, the government has conceded on a few minor points, although after Councillor Jackson has spoken, it does sound like some of these are under the incentive clause. So they have expanded Robert Road Park, they've widened some bike paths, they've increased the lot sizes to 4,000 square metres to mitigate landslip risks south of Castle Hill Road. But tweaking lot sizes doesn't fix the core error of putting high-density towers on unstable slopes right beside critically endangered blue gum high forest. This plan is not density well done. It is overdevelopment dumped on a beautiful and a unique suburb without the essential services needed to sustain it. We do need planning that works. 30% affordable housing, capped building heights, immediate school infrastructure, better transport solutions and better protection for our local environment. And this is really disappointing. So I support your mayoral minute and I too hope that it gets traction.
Thank you. Councillor Bonham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your excellent minute. Look, I was really horrified when Councillor Damasi said that there were 51 demountables at Castle Hill High School. And then I was further disturbed when you said that the government is going to address the school infrastructure shortfall by upgrading the existing schools, which basically means putting in more demountables. And I just think demountables are awful buildings, awful structures, and I think children know that they are temporary. It changes their mindset. I mean, I can look back to my schools. They're both still standing. My primary school and high school are still standing. A lot of memories there. Children who are in these demountables will be landfill somewhere eventually. It's just, I just find it really disturbing that our government thinks that putting kids in demountables is good enough, and it's just not. And I don't know how they cool and warm these structures. They're just awful. I teach in them weekly and I just find them awful. But I think it all gets back to, and I've mentioned it here before, the economic model of this country is really, really flawed. We're almost unique in the world where we rely on housing to drive our economy, which basically means that we have to bring lots and lots of immigrants in to drive the housing so that then we have an economy. We build houses, not the other way around. We don't build houses because we have immigration. It's flawed. This country is so rich. When people come to this country, they often tell me, this is amazing. You've got so many resources. You've got so many amazing things in this country, and yet you're just going down the tank. You're so badly managed. And I think we need governments that have vision, governments that can see. Look at our farmers. I know we're a council, but our farmers are constantly treated so poorly, and yet we could rely on feeding the world. We have the capacity in this country to do so much. We have the capacity to engage in industry, but our politicians are so short-sighted and only rely on housing, and that's why we end up in the position that we are at the moment with places like this Cherrybrook precinct. It's just abominable, and I might just send out a call to the developers. In my experience, people come to a place, they bring their families because of a school. They move to areas because of schools. There are no schools. Who is going to buy these apartments? Why would you bring your family to an apartment, a high-rise, when there's no school infrastructure? It's just crazy. It doesn't make sense. We're all appalled, and I just wish we could really put the clarion call out to all the people in the hills and all the people in New South Wales. It's not your councils doing this, it's your state government, and we really need to bear down on them to do the right thing. It's just outrageous what we're having to put up with, what the people in the hills are having to put up with. It's not fair. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, and I'll leave it with you.
Thank you, Councillor Bonham. Any further speakers? Councillor Gretz-Seaver.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm also in support of your motion. I thinking we should closely monitor this precinct, and we should continue our advocacy together with the Hornsby Council. So it's mainly been said, valid arguments and facts regarding this development. So my concern, so what we have now, that every dwelling will pay the housing and productivity contribution. And if we multiply by proposed development, it's expected that state collect around $100 million. But the risk is there because this new proposed funding replace our prior SIG fund for the Western Sydney. So again, this collection will not specifically will be allocated to this precinct, to Cherrybrook. So this is a risk for us, and we should closer monitor and make sure that this money actually go into our community. So our advocacies need to continue regarding that proposal for the new school for 2041 is not good enough for that school. Delivery must be triggered by homes occupied and not by distant date. The second, we've been also noted, the Castle Hill Road corridor must be upgraded in step with occupation, not after building. And third, pocket parks and no playing fields. Cherrybrook share of this contribution, as I said before, must come back to the real sporting grounds and commuter parking. So, as I said, we should continue our advocacy and closer monitor each stage of contribution in fundings available. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gretz-Seaver. Any further speakers? No further speakers? Councillor Cox, you just got in.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did want to point out a few things to some of my colleagues. Particularly, I definitely agree with Councillor Bonham. I did hear a rumour that one of the developers up at Showground knew the benefit of having a school and offered, if you just let me move the height onto the rest of the site, I'll build the school for you, and was turned down for some reason. So they could have got a free school on free land, but that'd make too much sense. I am a bit, I share most of the concerns of Councillor Casby, but I don't think having affordable houses where you're picking winners and the rest of us have to pay for it effectively is not a good solution. It's like rent control. It's great for the person that's got the controlled rent. It ruins it for everyone else. We should just get rid of the red and green tape and have affordable housing for everybody. I would also strongly encourage our dear friends at the state government to release some live streams of the decision-making process, discussion and advice that ministers received in coming to these conclusions. If it's good enough for council, it certainly is good enough for these big decisions. Where are we? And I was going to ask the GM about the geotech issues, but his answer pretty much said it all. They haven't resolved it at all. They've just sort of vaguely alluded to it, but definitely no certainty there. To get this back with an increase and no extra infrastructure, I mean, even if they gave us the instinct and appropriate infrastructure, this would be terrible. It'd be unacceptable at that point, let alone what it is now. And again, they could have done the same thing with the land they were selling, put the height across and built a school there. But that would be too much forward thinking for our dear friends at the state government. This is the betrayal of good faith that a few people have touched on. I feel very personally, because when I was on Hornsby Council in the 2012 to 17 term, that was when this started. We started these conversations in good faith with the state government. There have been community groups and other groups working with the state government for over 10 years in good faith, having serious consultation, reading through all the reams of documents to give their response, and for everything they've said and everything they did to just be utterly disregarded, it's just offensive. The other part alluded to by, I think it was Councillor Bonham as well, about they're trying to increase the GDP by bringing population in, or someone said that. It's even worse than that, because our GDP per capita is going down. We're getting worse off, but the government gets to say GDP up because it's up net, but we are getting poorer because of it. We're also getting more expensive housing. We're also getting worse housing. And look, I'd have time for the state on this if they actually had the stones to, get a bit. It was great to see the Premier say, we're not enforcing your cigarette law with our resources. Be great if he could say, hey, all this immigration isn't actually good for us. It's not the immigration itself, but just there's no room. The effect of all this is that we're going to end up in the residents of Cherrybrook on average are going to live in smaller homes. They're going to have less infrastructure per person. They're going to have poorer lives. The GDP per capita is down, and we should have better aims for the people of New South Wales and the people of the Shire. That I think this will be the first time that the next generation is going to live a worse life. We should hope for better for ourselves and all residents, and then huddling in homes hoping that the geotech was done right. It's not going to slide down the cliff or the hill. It's just disgusting.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Any further speakers on this one? No further speakers. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you, councillors. Do you have two standing for a division? Yeah, it's more than two. Be seated. Thank you, councillors. You can vote on your keypads, please.
All votes are in, Madam Mayor.
All votes are in. That motion is unanimous and it's carried, but for the tape recording and proceedings, I'll read the names of those who voted in favour. Councillor Blue, Councillor Bonham, Councillor Cartwright, Councillor Cox, Councillor Massey, Councillor Casby, Councillor Gretsiva, Councillor Hazelden, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Jetty, Councillor Severage, Councillor Uno and myself, Mayor Dr Byrne. Thank you, councillors. We now move to Mayoral Minute number 26/2026. Coalition's announcements on low and mid-rise housing reforms. Councillors, last Friday, Leader of the Opposition Kelly Sloan announced at a Housing Now conference that if the Coalition wins the next year's election, they will give councillors the power to opt out of the low and mid-rise housing reforms. I welcome this announcement from Ms Sloan. At last, finally, we have our New South Wales opposition that is appreciative of the decades of strategic planning done by councils that's pushing back against the unplanned, over-the-top development of our communities. In previous years, infrastructure will be planned when the controls and densities are set for a precinct, but that's not how the current New South Wales government is operating. As the New South Wales government's low and mid-rise housing reforms currently stand, they allow for an extra 9,968 dwellings in the hills. Then we have the government's Housing Delivery Authority, HDA, throwing all sense out the window and fast-tracking even more unplanned growth. There are currently 33 HDA declared sites throughout the hills, which will allow for nearly 15,000 dwellings, 8,520 of which are on top of the significant growth already planned for in Council's current plans and policies. Altogether, that's an extra 18,488 dwellings the government is allowing in the hills so far through lower mid-rise housing and the HDA pathways. That's approximately an additional 36,976 people moving into the hills, a population almost the same size as the suburb of Castle Hill. Done with the stroke of a pen, without any consideration of what this unplanned growth will do to the infrastructure in these precincts. This increase in our population means the hills will need an additional 9 playing fields, 16.2 hectares of parks and open space, 3,845 square metres of community centre floor space, 830 square metres of library floor space. This is on top of the additional infrastructure we require to service the planned growth within the hills. How and where is this going to be delivered? Without the government's tinkering, the hills already had capacity for close to 40,000 additional dwellings across the precincts that will be impacted by the lower mid-rise and the HDA. What the government has planned for our community is completely over the top, and we don't even have the infrastructure to accommodate it. Just recently, the HDA has replaced a proposal for a 13-storey residential development on Carrington Road across from Showground Metro with a new proposal for 40 storeys. It's not just this site either. There are already another 8 HDA declared sites within the same Showground precinct, allowing for another 2,000 dwellings, more than what was planned for in the precinct. Even before the HDA, we were expecting 20,000 new residents to call the Showground precinct home, and the Minns government still hasn't identified or funded a much-needed primary school. Next door in the Castle Hill precinct, there are another 9 HDA declared projects and 7 within the adjoining Norwest precinct, all without any evidence that the government has considered the impact of these proposals. Last year in the Bella Vista precinct, the HDA fast-tracked a proposal that was originally zoned for 3 buildings at 8, 18 and 22 storeys on Mawson Avenue in Bella Vista. Under the HDA, this proposal has turned into 2 40-storey towers and more than doubled the number of apartments to 900 dwellings. If the HDA proposals at Carrington Road and Mawson Avenue are fully approved, they will be the tallest buildings in the hills. The HDA is a complete joke, allowing developers to try on the highest yields in the name of solving the housing crisis, and often on sites that already have approval like the Carrington Road and Mawson Avenue proposal. I would ask Ms Sloan to go one step further with her announcement and also exempt local councils from the Housing Delivery Authority if the coalition is elected next year. Our community thinks council and councillors are in charge of planning, but our local environment plan is being constantly overridden by the government's recent policy changes, and most significant development is being approved by planning panels or through the Department of Planning, Housing and Infrastructure. The government is blindly rewriting the future of the hills and rubber stamping develops ambit claims without any understanding of the infrastructure our community needs to accommodate this growth. The ad hoc approach of the HDA and the low and mid-rise undermines years of strategic planning. These one-size-fits-all controls are unwarranted and unwelcome here. Right now, the Trojan horse is the housing crisis. Very soon, the reality will be a reduced quality of life, as housing without a plan will lead to overcrowded schools, roads and hospital. It will also lead to insufficient overcrowded open space, sporting fields and community centres, and result in just about every service you need being unavailable or with significant wait times. Our state and federal governments are drunk on population rise, but have short arms and deep pockets to fund it. Accordingly, I move that 1, this amendment be received, and 2, the Mayor Right to Leader of the Opposition, Ms Kelly Sloan MP, to request coalition also exempt local councils from the Housing Delivery Authority if they are elected next year. Councillor Damasi.
Madam Mayor, you are on fire this evening with your mayoral minutes.
They've only got 2.
I know you got 2, but they're one's just as important as the other, Madam Mayor. I just cannot believe what's going on here in the hills. This Shire, we've always done the right thing. We've always met our housing targets, but we seem to be getting punished. We're getting punished by a state government who's trying to fix an immigration problem from our federal government, who's bringing all these residents into the country without proper housing. And they seem to be targeting the hills for that purpose. They want to bring the housing here, but no infrastructure. No infrastructure, no fixing up the local roads, no new sporting fields. We are trying to deliver sporting fields for our community, but that's not enough what we're delivering. We have to deliver more. And Madam Mayor, this is absolutely, again, it's a word I'll be using time and time again, outrageous. Council should decide the future of the hills, not unelected state authorities. Councils are elected to represent the residents, and when we do represent the majority of our residents, but our hands are tied. Councils has spent decades developing strategic plans based on infrastructure, transport, schools, open space and community needs. The HDA can effectively override that planning framework overnight. You've got a three-person panel, 3 people who don't even live here in the hills, deciding what is going to take place in the hills, how we are going to live our lives here in the hills with all these buildings, which is absolutely outrageous, Madam Mayor. Growth without infrastructure is not planning. The Mayoral Minute defines the additional requirements as you've indicated, Madam Mayor. 9 new playing fields were required, 16.2 hectares of parks and open space, roughly 3,845 square metres of community centre space, and 830 metres square of library space or community space. The obvious question is, where's the funding and where are the sites? Madam Mayor, you mentioned the showground precinct. I'm pretty sure that under the previous coalition government, it was capped. And it wasn't just a question, the General Manager, it wasn't capped at 5,000?
Through to you, that's correct.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, 5,000 was the cap.
So it was capped at 5,000. And what are we getting in return at the showground? We're getting 20,000 new residents. 20,000, that's 4 times what was, three times more than what the original cap was. Again, they still haven't identified a school there. Under the previous government, there was a school, land was set aside for a school. There was space set aside for a school, but that's all been swept away, swept under the carpet. As I mentioned before, Castle Hill High School has got 51 demountables, 200% capacity. When it rains, students walk from demountable to demountable in the mud. Are we a third world country here? This is outrageous. Madam Mayor, along Carrington Avenue, which I drive along Carrington Avenue all the time, and there's this lovely building, this nice white building there, which used to be a childcare centre, and it horrifies me now that when I drive past that building now, that building is now, which was meant to be a high-rise, is now going to be one of the 40-storey buildings here in the hills. Again, an eyesore. What are the residents going to do? They'll see that, and who are they going to blame? They'll blame us. I think that we are the ones who approved it. We're not the ones who approved it. The 3-person panel, the HDA, who the state government has set up, these people who don't even live here in the hills, have approved that. And not only that, over in Bella Vista, great, we've got a Todd's precinct over there, and we already had plans for, we already had the uplift from the state government because they wanted everything on this side of Old Windsor Road, nothing on the other side of Old Windsor Road. Funny that, different colour on the other side of the Old Windsor Road compared to the colour on this side of Windsor Road, but we had the uplift. Then to add insult to injury, the HCA has come along and wants to put another 40-storey building there, a 40-storey building there. You might as well call us the towers out here. It's not the gardens, Shire anymore. It's going to be the Tower Shire because we're going to have towers everywhere. And that's only the beginning. There's 33 of these planned. 33...
Move by Councillor Blue, second by Councillor Ino. All those in favour say aye. Continue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So there's 33 of these sites throughout the Shire. We're going to have these things popping up left, right and centre. And what do we get in return? Nothing. We get nothing in return. We've got our local roads are at the brink. We had our campaign, a fight for a fairer hills community. We're actually nominated. We're a nominee in the local government awards for that very, very thing because we went out there to make a difference for our residents. We're telling them that our local roads are strained. Our local roads are strained. We're lacking playing fields. Our schools are at capacity. And again, the funding at what's happening at the shortfall at Box Hill, that's a different story. altogether. But Madam Mayor, it's absolutely outrageous that we've got a government who is denying our residents by approving these houses because we're trying to fix a problem from our federal government. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Any further speakers? Councillor Severage.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm actually going to vote against this mayoral minute. I fully support your HTA. It seems to be a breeding ground for developers. There's an expression of interest called, developers put up their interest and they start building. However, the core issue here is the low and mid-rise housing. And to me, it's a very perfect middle ground between high-rises and independent houses, and with a housing shortage, which we all recognize. And also, Madam Mayor, finally, I actually see the recommendation here. It says that you want to write to the coalition, Madam Mayor. I actually saw a recent poll that said the coalition is at 18%, Madam Mayor, so I'm just thinking that if they get elected, it's a very, very big if, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
I'll write to anyone at this point. I've already written to Scully a million times, and I get my usual rack-off letters. Councillor Blue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, look, Madam Mayor, most of what I said in the last mayoral minute could be said again because it's a repeating issue, just different area in the Shire.
It's true.
And what I said at the last meeting and the meeting before that and probably 12 months ago could be repeated because we seem to be going over the same issues time and time again and nothing changes. The only thing that changes is the HTA comes along and week by week we get another approval. We get another building. We get some form of housing target program. We've had the TOD, the low to mid-rise, the HTA. What have we got next? ABC. Who knows what's coming around the corner? But Madam Mayor, I'm tired of having to explain this to our residents. I'm tired of having to be, as I said before in the last mayoral minute, I'm tired of being smashed by our residents for these atrocities that are occurring in our Shire. And Madam Mayor, I'm afraid to say it, but the hills is all but gone. If we don't make a change now, we don't have long left before this is, as Councillor Damasi said, a place of towers and nothing but. And it's not appropriate planning. There's no planning whatsoever here. This council invested significant funds and time to appropriately navigate our way around the infrastructure concerns around these precincts, and we got it right. We put out some some precinct plans that were very well respected within the community and across industry bodies. Madam Mayor, I thought they hit the right mark. We were onto a winner of those precinct plans. They struck a balance. They provided the infrastructure. They considered traffic solutions. They outlined land for schools. They outlined land for parks, playing fields. But Madam Mayor, they were torn up and thrown away. And here we are with the HDA who just, as we saw, Madam Mayor, some time ago, HDA were assessing some of these with AI and they were giving them less than 3 minutes consideration, off they went. That's the type of stuff we're dealing with here. But Madam Mayor, the things that communities are looking for here are, when you have precincts of this scale, they're looking for amenities, they're looking for community centres, they're looking for parks, they're looking for open space, they're looking for playing fields. Madam Mayor, without these, we're creating slums. We're creating buildings. People aren't going to be able to move. People aren't going to be able to go outside. People aren't going to be able to play. They're not going to have a school to go to. They won't be able to get in the car and the metro's chockers. I don't know what planet these people are living on. Madam Mayor, the thing that no one's talking about and the thing that needs to be part of this conversation is the quality of these developments that we're seeing across the Shire. Madam Mayor, I have lived first-hand experience of a terrible, terrible building that is built here in this Shire. And Madam Mayor, I can tell you personally that this building commission we have are soft and the developers walk all over them. And Madam Mayor, until this government and the minister gets his head out of the sand and deals with this building commission and holds these developers to account, I would not go anywhere near a high-rise building in this Shire. I would not go anywhere near a high-rise building in this state because, Madam Mayor, they are riddled with defects and they get away with blue murder and there's no accountability on these developers. So until this government decides to fix that system which has been broken for so many years, until they decide to get that right, we are creating all sorts of problems. And you're not going to see them in the next couple of years. This will be a problem that is out of control in 10 years' time. We've seen the introduction of private certification and the problems that has played over time. That's been in now for 30 years, and look at the issues we're having now. And I'm almost putting it down to a lot of these issues now with these developments are due to private certification. But until we have someone, a regulator out there that gives confidence to the market and gives our residents the protection they need, more than what they currently have, which is they have more protection when they buy a TV from the local electronics shop than they do when they buy an apartment. Until this government fixes that up, I would not go anywhere near one of these buildings. And I'm going to put that on the record because this needs to be a conversation this government wakes up to. Because it's no good rezoning your way out of a housing crisis. It's no good putting a random figure on a drawing and saying that'll do, we've ticked the box. But if you aren't going to be the regulator and you aren't going to ensure that these buildings are fit for purpose, then they're letting our community down. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Hazelden.
Touched on something which struck a chord with me, and that is to reflect on the fact that to a degree we're a microcosm of what's happening on a bigger scale out here. There is no national population policy. If we take what's going to happen here for the next 10 or 20 years and extrapolate that against the whole nation and assume a uniform distribution of this sort of activity, Madam Mayor, we're going to be looking obviously at a $35 to $40 million population in the next 10 to 20 years. And if that occurs at the expense of GDP per capita declining, as Councillor Bonham suggested, if it occurs so that our way of life is irrevocably changed, that there are limited opportunities for recreational activity, if they occur where people have no backyard or no green space, then the population policy or the lack of population policy is sorely lacking. And I think, Madam Mayor, if we had a more interested media, both locally and globally and nationally, statewide, more people would be aware. There would be more people in the gallery tonight listening to this issue of great concern. Right now, it's just impacting the citizens of the Hills. It's not actually impacting just yet, but we can see the effects of that as we drive along Carrington Road, as we drive along these developing areas now. But it's about to become a monstrous issue. And the media needs to be across this because, as we've all referred to tonight, we have such limited power, as Councillor Blue has reminded us on a number of occasions. Residents think that we are capable, that we're responsible for this travesty. Of course, we're not, Madam Mayor. It's the state government. Sitting over the top of the state government, of course, is a federal government that is out of control. It's punch drunk on population increase, and that is the underlying root of all the issues confronting this nation today. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelden. Any further speakers? Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we need to inject some balance and perspective into the debate of tonight's 2 mayoral minutes. New South Wales is facing a very real and very serious housing crisis. Young people are being locked out of home ownership, families are struggling to find affordable rentals, and increasingly our own children are wondering whether they will ever be able to afford to live in the communities in which they grew up. Government has a responsibility to act, and that is precisely what the New South Wales government is doing. And let's be very clear, this government is not ignoring infrastructure here in the Hills. We are seeing the biggest investment in public school infrastructure in the Hills in a generation. That includes 2 new schools in Bella Vista and a new public preschool, a major upgrade to Cherrybrook Public School, and planning for the long-term future of Castle Hill High School. That's on top of the major upgrade to Rouse Hill High School, as well as upgrades at Excelsior Public School, Matthew Pearce Public School and Castle Hill Public School. And in our rapidly growing communities, we are seeing new schools and public preschools at Box Hill and the Gables, including a new high school at Box Hill. And not to mention the Rouse Hill Hospital, finally under construction after 15 years. So when it is suggested that the New South Wales government is simply delivering housing growth into the Hills while doing nothing about infrastructure, the facts simply do not support that argument. Does the Hills need more infrastructure? Absolutely. Do we need continued investments in roads, public transport, schools, police, fire and ambulance services in our population growth? Absolutely. But let's remember something very important here. The Hills did not suddenly start growing in March 2023. The infrastructure pressures we are experiencing today did not appear overnight. The enormous population growth, rezoning and development that has transformed this shire has occurred over many years. So it is simply unreasonable to suggest that every infrastructure shortfall confronting the hills today can be laid at the feet of a state government that has been in office for just over 3 years. The Housing Delivery Authority exists because the housing crisis requires urgency. We cannot spend another decade talking about housing supply while an entire generation becomes increasingly locked out of home ownership and secure housing. And importantly, the state also has an infrastructure contributions framework through the Housing Productivity Contribution, which helps fund essential infrastructure such as schools, hospitals, major roads, public transport and open space as our community grows. We need to build the homes desperately needed for the next generation while continuing to deliver the infrastructure that makes those communities livable. I will absolutely continue to advocate for more infrastructure for the hills, but I will also defend a state government that is prepared to make difficult decisions and confront one of the greatest challenges facing New South Wales today. So, Madam Mayor, I will not be supporting this motion, this Mayoral Minute, I beg your pardon, because doing nothing about the housing crisis is simply not an option. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Uno.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I rise in support of this Mayoral Minute. I think it's always frustrates me when certain councillors cherry pick, Madam Mayor, cherry pick statistics to suit their agenda. Then rather than looking at everything through an objective lens, let's go pick a bit here, pick a bit there. We heard Councillor Cartwright talk about the fact that this immigration has happened over a long period of time. Well, let's expose the facts, Madam Mayor. 2015-16 under a Liberal government, 206,000. In 2017, 263,000. 17-18, 238. 19, 241. 20, 193, the start of COVID. Then once COVID hit, minus 85,000. Then I believe in the last year of the Liberal government, Madam Mayor, the federal level government, it was 204. Then we enter the Labor years, Madam Mayor, 538,000. 2024, 429,000. 2025, 306,000. 3 record years over this previous federal Labor government. Now, Madam Mayor, I agree with Councillor Cartwright. It's not all the fault of the Minns government. Unfortunately, their federal colleagues have left them holding the bag. But, Madam Mayor, we've got a severe housing crisis. The HDA whacking up 40 stories on Carrington Road is not the answer. 42 kilometres from the CBD, Madam Mayor. 40 stories, 42 kilometres from the CBD. That is not the answer. That had an approved DA for 12 stories. That development that was due to commence construction and provide this much needed dwellings for our residents the can has been kicked down the road. That developer went, well, if we've been approved for 12 stories, 200 odd dwellings, but now the government can give us 40 stories, why would we build a 12-storey apartment? For the developer, they want the best return on investment. So they don't care about the fact that there's a shortfall in housing. They don't care about the housing crisis that we have at the moment. All that they care about is the return on investment. But unfortunately, this is a problem with the Housing Delivery Authority. They've got no accountability. Question through to the General Manager, Madam Mayor.
Of course.
Who is the current panel of the HDA?
Through to you, Mr. Echo.
Madam Mayor, I think it's...
Thank you for that, Mr. General Manager. The fact that the General Manager could not answer within a few seconds who are the panel members of the HDA shows you how opaque this this group is, Madam Mayor. The fact that they are not accountable to us as residents, they're not accountable to the residents of the Hillshire Council, they're not even accountable to the councils within Sydney, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, this is a group that has been handpicked with one aim and one aim solely: put as much dwellings into the smallest amount of space as possible. We have lost the balance, Madam Mayor. We have lost the backyard. Instead of a state government building infrastructure to unlock land, the metro was a tremendous piece of infrastructure that unlocked land, that allowed people to move throughout Sydney. We're not seeing any grand vision from this state government, Madam Mayor. We're not seeing any big development. We're not seeing fast rail into the open vastness between Sydney and Canberra to unlock that land and to give people the ability to travel quickly into Sydney, to travel down to Melbourne, to connect the Western Sydney Airport, to allow people to live on a 500 to 700 square metre block and enjoy a backyard. We're not seeing that sort of development, Madam Mayor.
Meeting extension time, moved by Councillor Massey, second by Councillor Bonham. All those in favour say aye. Against, continue.
We're not seeing that sort of infrastructure being delivered to allow people access to cheaper land. Unfortunately, we're seeing the exact opposite. And Councillor Cartwright, to speak out of both sides of her mouth and say, hey, I was in favour of this last mayoral minute, but the state government is giving some, opening up some schools. It's not enough. It's not enough, Madam Mayor. When we're seeing 27,000 residents moving into Cherrybrook and West Pennant Hills, when we're seeing tens of thousands move across all of our transport-orientated development sites, Madam Mayor, without the infrastructure that is really required, unfortunately our residents, like the residents of Box Hill under our current CP15, they're just going to be left holding the bag for generations to come. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Uno. Any further speakers? Councillor Gretzeva.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm actually thinking in support of your motion. However, I just, as far as I understand and as information I have, the state government currently reconsidered the HA and its effectiveness, because current figures showing that HDA not coping with the set time frame for approval. So the second point I would like to raise that when we had in a business chamber, Kelly Sloan given the speech to the chamber, she mentioned that Liberal government will have ambition housing targets. So if we're talking about the HDA or not HDA, our hills is growing area, and I guess the proper way it will be for us to prepare strategies that we are ready for growth, so for delivery our infrastructure for our community. So as I mentioned, I'm happy to support your motion. The only question I have, I'm just confused, not understand the second point of motion that councils exempt councils from HDA if they Liberal government will be elected. So as far as I understand, this pathway created for the major development with more than 60 million worth, that developer who select to go through this pathway not from the council, if developer decided to go through HDA, the role of the council is just to make a submission and consult the HDA. So, but in our second point, we say exempt council from HDA. So just a little bit confused. Exempt council means that we not going make any submission to HDA or exam, because the role of the council, as I said, in this model, just provide consultation, submissions.
I think the point of point 2 is asking Kelly Sloan, if she's elected next year, if they will come up with a policy that switches off the HDA in local government areas that are meeting their housing targets. So if it's a council area that's not meeting their housing targets, then by all means switch on the HDA, but we're asking her to switch it off and exempt councils from it.
Yeah, I understand what you meant, and as I said, I will support it.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Councillor Grasshaver. Councillor Una.
Question.
Yeah.
Is it possible, just with Councillor Gritsever's observation, it's possible to broaden it to write that whoever is elected.
We can write to
Yeah,
Minister for Planning again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
Yes.
sure he loves getting
Thank you,
letters
Madam
from
Mayor.
me. We can write to him as well.
Okay, thank you, Madam
So
Mayor.
that's- we can amend that to put in the planning minister. We can write to Minns himself, the Premier. Yep. Yep. You could even go further and say that, you know, if they won't switch it off for councils, they should at least switch it off in land that's zoned commercial, because that's what we've got the problem in Norwest. The land is being switched to residential, so we're losing commercial land. Yeah, losing future jobs. Yeah. I'm sure the Brains Trust will get that down.
I think if we just get enough real room, I think we can.
Okay, I can write whatever I want, really. Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Jodie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I rise in support of your mayoral minute. Just before I go ahead, may I you ask if you have actually raised this issue of overdevelopment and lack of infrastructure many times in your past mayoral minutes. How many times have you received a proactive response from the current government, may I request?
Mr Edgar. I don't know. I've got a whole heap of 1-800 record letters.
I completely empathise
That's not
for
going to stop
you.
me from writing.
I completely understand, and I feel really heartened that as a mayor you are doing your utmost best to bring the issues of our residents to the current government. And you have done so with the past government as well, and we are appreciative of that. Having said that, I know a lot of points have been raised at this point in both the mayoral minutes, which sort of overlap in many ways. But the major problem is we don't see where, as a physical structure, land is made available for another police station, another fire station, another, what my fellow councillor Blue has been fighting for emergency services, time and again. We do not have a physical place for another school to go in, which is sort of agreed and approved by the government. One has been taken away, two have been taken away from us. So we do not know where our residents' children will actually go to school. By all means, HDA can keep approving these and making them a monstrous job for future years to come. But may I, for the simplicity of our residents, just put a question across? If, as a house owner, as a resident of the house, if you were to make any changes to renovate
to add an additional dwelling to your house or land or anything, would you make the decision how much and how more to go and how much to invest and what color choices, what style do you want, or would you allow an external entity to dictate that upon you? That is where this mayoral minute lands, Madam Mayor. And for the ease of understanding of those who are watching us and listening to us from their homes, that this is what HDA is doing in our Hillshire Council. It has just roped our arms and put us into a stop situation that we cannot make any decisions. We can't even stop them from making decisions for our shire, for our residents. They're trying to throw in thousands and thousands of more population in our shire, but do they realize where the financial situation is of New South Wales? Do they realize where these grown-up young adults will go for their work experience? There's no commercial precincts being looked at. There's nothing looked at for business opportunities, but all that is being looked at is throwing more and more residences. It is not about this political party or that political party. May I just remind all my colleagues that we are here to work for our residents. And may I also just emphasize on the fact that if today we are not fighting for them, there will be nothing left to fight for in future. And it is important that everyone gears up behind this, because today we are thinking, oh yes, let this huge high-rise building go up. There won't be many residents in there because there won't be affordability. They won't come here because there's no schools. They won't come here because there's no job opportunity. They won't. But the most important part is, what are we signing up today and what are we not opposing today, and how we will answer the future generations of the Hills. And we are answerable, Madam Mayor, and that's why I fully support your mayoral minutes, both of them, and this one dearly much more, because HDA is not an answer. They're just an external entity just signing off one piece of paper after another. They have no clue whatsoever, and I really appreciate, if at all, this team of 3 people who knows who they are, where they come from, and where their expertise is from, but they cannot make, and they should not make decisions for the Hillshire Council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jodie. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A lot of the concern that I see from all of this, especially that we were already meeting our housing targets, was the dramatic increase in proposed housing moving forward from, especially from the initiatives of the current and new state government. And I know Councillor Cartwright's comments about the issues of the past and the Liberal Party and the previous government didn't catch up and do all of these things. But I just want to ask a question through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Cartwright, if she read the Fight for Fairy Hills petition.
Through you, Councillor Cartwright.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, I have read the Fighting for Fairy Hills petition, and I've also read that you're using ratepayers' money, which I disagree. Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Mayor, I just want to ask Councillor Cartwright if she, after agreeing that she read it, was aware that the proposal was about future growth through the TODs and also the low to medium rise developments and the need for infrastructure to support those proposals.
For you, Madam Mayor, I disagree with the Fighting for a Fairy Hills future, because it is, as I said, it's using ratepayers' money for a political campaign purpose. Okay.
Madam Mayor, my question was she aware that it was a proposal around the TODs and also the low and medium rise infrastructure to support those proposals.
Councillor Cartwright.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have said more than enough, so it's becoming waffle. So I have clearly said what I have said. Thank you.
So the answer is no, but sit down. Continue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I kind of expected that response, so
Yep.
I'll just refresh everybody's memory. On the Fight for Fair Hills Future website, it says these changes include the designation of TOD development, which is within the current government. This area alone has the potential for 11,600 homes, which will bring a population of more than 23,000 people into the approximate area of 1.04 kilometres, making it larger than Sydney's central business district, with a residential population of 18,818 people who live in an area of 2.97 kilometres. It says also here, beyond TODs, additional reforms propose low and medium rise housing policies, allowing terraces and 6-storey developments near transport hubs, further density incentives such as 30% floor space ratio bonus for affordable housing projects are also being introduced. Madam Mayor, the Fight for a Fairer Hills campaign was specifically about the increased growth we were getting on top of the initiatives from the current government. And Madam Mayor, on the 4th of April 2025, Councillor Cartwright made a comment in the Kellyville community group that says, now amongst other things, now the BS campaign of Fight for a Fairer Hills Future after 11 years in state government, pathetic. Madam Mayor, I think there must have been a confusion of what it was actually for, not just the 11 years, but also the increase in population that was coming from the proposal. And to call a call for infrastructure for Hills residents a BS campaign pretty much says all to me about what Labor thinks about infrastructure in the Hills, that essentially it's BS, Madam Mayor. I think ultimately the request that we have here as part of this mayoral minute is on top of what was already proposed in the Fight for Fairer Hills campaign, which is the Housing Delivery Authority, and ultimately I think it should be abolished, and realistically we should go back to councils ultimately making the decision what's best for their community in exactly what we did through Fight for a Fairer Hills Future, despite what many people think about it. And at the end of the day, Madam Mayor, fighting for the community and using community funds to be able to do that has been exactly what governments have done, both state, federal and local, since they've literally existed. Councils were put together by residents to pool their money to be able to fight for better opportunities for them. That's literally what they were designed for. So the criticism about using communities' money to be able to fight for them is very ill-informed and a lack of understanding realistically of what councils were actually designed for. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Cox.
As much as I'd love for the Honourable Kiss Minns MP to request the coalition do things, it might be better that we say instead of the coalition that they also exempt, so it covers both parties, or something there.
Yeah, we can change that.
Yeah. I would also like to note that, as Councillor Cartwright has said, these issues have been brewing for a good long time, and that means that our friends in the state government have had many years before they were in government to plan on how to address the apparently obvious problems that were there for everyone to see. And now they've had 3 years to implement whatever solution they came up with, and the solution they came up with is the HDA. That's what they came up with. I am very concerned about whoever is making these decisions. I see there are some benefits in planning panels in the sense that they don't make a political decision. When they're interpreting a plain planning document or an LEP and that sort of thing, sometimes it's better to take the politics, or there's an argument there. That's not what this is, though, because there's almost no rules they have to follow. Their only guideline seems to be, does it make more houses? Let's do it. The other concern I have that was touched on is that the HDA is a failure of a policy because, as we've noted, there was approved housing that would have been delivered sooner, but now has been delayed so that they can have another bite and try and get more housing. The HDA has actually slowed the delivery of some approved housing, or stopped it altogether. and dangled the carrot in front of the developers and said, hey, you're making millions, you could make a lot more, come on. If we really want the crisis brought under control, we might look to other Western countries and what they're doing. In America right now, and I'm not getting into the weeds of why it's happening, but it is happening that there is net emigration from America. Their population is going down in terms of immigration. And guess what? In the US major cities, rents are down 4.5%. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be great? Rents going down. Not how far up are they going, but down. Like there's been 10% rises across the board here. It's be wonderful. Strategically speaking, this is more a rhetorical question, but I wonder, would our council be better off? And it feels like we're being targeted because of the colour of the council, but it may not be, because this is one of the best run, if not the best run councils in Sydney, and we have a lot of infrastructure, and we have a lot better than others, and we are better placed to go with this. Or things like Box Hill happen, and the state government can't go, well, this is a small country council, there's no way they could plug that gap with anything. They can actually say to us, and it's plausible, we could put a levy on all residents to cover the shortfall, and people could survive. So because we're being punished for being well run, and if that's the path the government wants to go down, that's going to be really bad because you're rewarding failure and encouraging people not to do things properly. We could have less of these towers everywhere if our roads were even more clogged. We could have all sorts of good things. In some ways, we're being punished for our success. And last suggestion I have, thanks to Councillor Blue, is our dear state colleagues could attend planning for non-planners, and they'd probably be better off doing that, and then a way to, solve the housing crisis and the infrastructure backlogs and all sorts of problems, they could take that and then pull a Canberra, as I call it, and build a new state capital somewhere else away from Sydney, and they could, and that could be planned by them, and they'd have to live in it. So that'd be good, because then they might have some incentive to do it properly. And it would take a lot of pressure off Sydney. Anyway, but alas, I believe the course might be too expensive for them or something, and that'll be the reason it doesn't happen.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Any further speakers? No further speakers. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you, councillors. Got two standing for a division. Thank you. Councillor, you can be seated. You can vote on your keypads, please.
All votes are in, Madam
All
Mayor.
votes are in. That motion is carried, but for the tape recording and proceedings of tonight's meeting, I'll read the names of councillors voting for and against. Voting for the motion, Councillor Blue, Councillor Bonham, Councillor Cox, Councillor Damasi, Councillor Casby, Councillor Cretsiva, Councillor Hayden, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Jetty, Councillor Severage, Councillor Uno, and myself, Mayor Dr. Byrne, and voting against that motion is Councillor Cartwright. Thank you, councillors. Any petitions this evening? No petitions. We move to planning matters. The following items 2 and 3 are defined as planning matters pursuant to the Local Government and Planning Legislation Amendment Political Donations Act 2008. We'll start with item 2, planning proposal, review of section 7.12 contributions plan, associated development control plan amendments, Norwest Innovation Employment FP 224. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the motion as per the business paper.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jetty. Councillor Massey, you should speak to your motion.
Yeah, just briefly, Madam Mayor, just on this, we're looking at the Norwest Innovation and Control Plan for Norwest. And, Madam Mayor, I've got to say I'm fully in support of the officer's recommendation for this. So it's basically looking at the Norwest Precinct Plan, and it's basically doing a correction of the mismatch of the FSR opposed to height. So and it's basically just capping what can be built in Norwest from 42 metres, which is 10 stories, which is the Bella Vista employment area. So it doesn't actually increase the FSR. It simply fixes the mismatch between the existing 2.1 FSR and the current height control. So it's just giving it that even balance there. The change will allow better building design, improved setbacks, building separation, landscaping, and reduced building bulk. So, and that's looking at our existing areas, particularly around where Bella Vista Station is, along Lexington there. The revised DCP will improve walkability.
Sorry to interrupt, Deputy Mayor. Sorry, Madam Mayor. Norwest Lexington Drive? Norwest.
In the Circa and Lexington precinct, so map on page 17, Madam Mayor.
Page 17.
So from effectively precinct where the hospital is to almost the Bella Vista metro station.
Okay, may I excuse myself, Madam Mayor? I apologise. I thought it was
conflict
just
of
Norwest.
interest?
Yep,
Okay.
conflict of interest. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We'll note that down. Thank you. We will need another second as now that Councillor Jetty has exited. Councillor Cox, you happy to second? Thank you. Continue, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just as I said, 42 metres, which is 10 stories, and it's just going to give it that that height control. So for the 2-for-1 FSR and the current height control. So we're going to get better buildings designs, including setbacks, building separation, landscaping, and reduce building bulk. The revised DCP will improve walkability, cycling, landscaping, pedestrian links, and interface with Elizabeth McCrafer Creek and Bella Vista Farm. They changed the contribution plan. Will also reflect the increase in development and infrastructure costs. So the works program will jump from 56.6 million up to 116.7 million. So the expected development area will jump from 640,000 square metres to 823 square metres, and the maximum levy will increase from 2.8% to 3.9%. So the increased contributions ensures future development makes an appropriate contribution towards the infrastructure needed to support the growth in that area. Importantly, council is also removing infrastructure that is no longer required, replacing proposed pedestrian bridge with more practical and accessible signalised crossing. So, and again, that's going to be a savings there just by doing that. The proposal supports jobs, investment and current growth of Norwest as a major employment centre. Finally, there will be future scrutiny when this does get presented to the local planning panel and it gets set to Gateway as well. So this is not the be or end all, so it still has to be assessed. So I fully recommend this recommendation. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Any further speakers? Councillor Grazeva.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm also in support of this motion, and as Councillor Di Masi just said, this proposal addresses planning problem that date back by state government rezoning of the Bella Vista Station precinct on 1st of December 2017. So I just would like to talk about the risk I can see here, finding risk or financial risk. The proposal actually increase work program from 57 million to 117 million. It's a huge increase, for more than 60 million increase. So to fund it, the maximum section 7.12 levy would raise from 2.8 to 3.9. So we can't impose the higher rate on its own. So, and the business paper telling that it requires assessment by the department and approval by the minister and amendment to the state regulation. So if the minister refused 3.9% rate, or approves a lower rate, there is no automatic requirement for the state government to fund the shortfall. So immediate pressure would return to us to cancel, to defer work or reduce scope or find alternative funding and potentially expose general ratepayers to cost. That would not be an acceptable default position in this scenario. So I support initiating this planning proposal and publicly exhibit, but initiation is not final approval. So for us, our next step would be understand the minister decision or clear indication of the status of 3.9% request, independent review of infrastructure cost, finding gap analysis at different levy rates, feasibility assessment, stage delivery, and clear funding strategy if full levy is not approved. We should also ensure that development does not proceed ahead of essential transport infrastructure required to support it. Strategic objective is here: correct the planning mismatch, support employment, and improve urban design. But council should not inherit unfunded liability arising from state-enabled development, and Hillshire ratepayers might not become default source of funding for any resulting shortfall. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gretseva. Any further speakers? No further speakers. Councillor Damasi, your right of reply.
Just briefly, Madam Mayor. So the Norwest Business Centre is an employment hub, and that's something we need in the Shire. So, and all we're doing is we're making sure that we provide employment for our people who live here. The whole idea is getting our people who live in our Shire to live, work, and play in the Shire, so that they're working close to home. So, we're expecting jobs between 2024 and 2044 to accommodate about 16,600 jobs just in that Norwest precinct, Madam Mayor. So the proposal is not about additional floor space. It's about making sure the floor space that is already permitted can be delivered in a better designed, more sustainability and more appropriate built form, while ensuring the infrastructure needed to support growth is properly funded. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. On item 2, planning proposal review of section 712 contributions plan, associated development control plan amendments, Norwest Innovation Employment. Got a motion moved by Councillor Massey, second by Councillor Cox. The recommendation contained in the report be adopted. It's a planning matter, Councillor, so you can vote on your keypads.
All votes are in, Madam Mayor.
All votes are in. That motion is carried, but for the tape recording proceedings of tonight's meeting, I'll read out the names of those voting for. Councillor Blue, Councillor Bonham, Councillor Cartwright, Councillor Cox, Councillor Damasi, Councillor Casby, Councillor Gretseva, Councillor Hazelden, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Severage, Councillor Uno, myself, Mayor Dr. Byrne. Councillor Jetty is out of the room, having declared a conflict of interest. Thank you, councillors. Can we ask Councillor Jetty to rejoin us, please? Thank you. We move to item 3, post-exhibition planning proposal, draft development control plan and draft voluntary planning agreement, Living Choice 9, Old Glenhaven Road and 5 Holland Road, Glenhaven, 9/2021/PLP. Councillor Hazelden. Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Uno.
Madam Mayor, do I need to read the 3 points of the recommendation, or is it taken as read?
Taken as read, as printed in the business paper.
Madam Mayor, The report in effect gives, I suppose, tacit approval for the living choice development to proceed. And I note that this has been a long time in gestation. It started as far back as 2021. The living choice development proposal is in stark contrast to the matters we've been talking about earlier this evening, because it involves very low density or relatively low density seniors living in what has been the rural transition zone, zoned RU6. And I think that, Madam Mayor, as again we've often recently referred to in this chamber, the population not only is growing in the Hills Shire, but also the population of our ageing people. And understandably, many people who lived here for a long time would want to live next to their family and friends and not have to move out of the area. So I do recall the debate in the previous term of council where seniors development was prohibited in RU6 zones, and at the time, I don't recall the detail, but I recall being puzzled as to why that was so, because it just does seem to me that it's a sensible use of land, particularly where the living choice facility as presently exists is, pardon me, Madam Mayor, is an existing use. One of the things that did impress me reading the report, Madam Mayor, was to see that Sydney Water has adequate infrastructure in the area to support the proposed development. And it's nice to see that there are at least some government departments that are forward-thinking and build infrastructures to support a burgeoning population, in contrast to some occasions we will also refer to in this chamber. Madam Mayor, the report has been, the proposal has been adequately researched. We've looked at important issues such as flood, whether it's flood-prone, fire area. And in conclusion, Madam Mayor, I see nothing but good news if this proposal is able to proceed to completion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers on this item? No further speakers. We're on item 3. Got a motion moved by Councillor Hazelden, second by Councillor Uno, that recommendation contained in the report be adopted. Again, councillors, the planning matter, so you can vote on your keypads, please.
All votes are in, Madam.
All votes are in. That was a bit slow. All votes are in. That motion is carried, but I'll read the names of those voting for and against for the tape recording of tonight's meeting. Voting in favour, Councillor Blue, Councillor Bonham, Councillor Cartwright, Councillor Cox, Councillor Damasi, Councillor Casby, Councillor Gretseva, Councillor Hazelden, Councillor Jetty, Councillor Serraj, Councillor Uno, and myself, Mayor Dr. Byrne. Voting against that motion is Councillor Jackson. Thank you. It's carried. We now move to call the agenda. Councillors, I'll read out items one by one. If you wish to speak to the motion or pull it, let me know. Item 4, review the operation of the Hills Design Advisory Panel, FP 274. That was Councillor Hazelden. Item 5, amendment to works in kind reimbursement agreement for the construction of full width road, the water lane 35 to 37 Mason Road, Box Hill, lot 72A, DP 11104, DA 1693/2022/ZA, and lot 73, DP 10157, DA 496/2022/ZA. Item 6, Councillor Cox, we need to pull anyway because it's got councillors declare conflicts, but 2026-2027 annual community grants and arts, culture and events grants. Item 7, proposed acquisition, part lot 2 DP 1313642 being part 107 to 111 Nelson Road, Box Hill for the purpose of local road. Item 8, proposed land acquisition lots 1 and 2 DP 1314256 in a plan of acquisition over lot 1 DP 239093 being part of 18 Mason Road, Box Hill. Item 9, tender T26-0078, design and construction of bank stabilisation, retaining structures CH 6400 River Road, Lower Portland, and CH 17300 River Road, Leetsvale. No one? Oh, you're pulling it? Sorry. Councillor Blue. Item 10, tender T26-0141, reconstruction of Annangrove Road between Windsor Road and Edwards Road, Rouse Hill,
And item there 11 is purely there for, sorry, Councillor Blue, you're pulling that? Item there 11 is purely there for information and cannot be pulled. There is nothing to vote on there. Councillors, can I have a motion to move item 5, item 7, item 8, and I'll just throw in item 11 just to be sure, on Globo. Moved by Councillor Cox, seconded by Councillor Damasi. Is there any debate? No debate, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. Those against. The recommendations in the business paper for those items are now the resolutions of this council. And we go all the way back to item 4, review of the operation of the Hills Design Advisory Panel, FP 274. Councillor Hazelden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Bonham, you wish to speak to your motion?
Briefly, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I see this as having nothing more than a positive outcome. I was amused to see on page 200 of the business report, Madam Mayor, a classic understatement. Under the executive summary, it states, as the Shire continues to grow, high-density development is becoming increasingly prevalent. I thought it tickled my fancy, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, if we cast our minds back to when the expert design panel was first promulgated, we were faced with some pretty awful development at the time, and I think there's a bit of a legacy in parts of the hills down around the Borkham Hills area where design excellence has not been considered. It's pleasing to see that generally in the tables that have been provided in the report that applicants, developers' responses applicants have been generally favourable, but they've responded favourably to the panel's suggestions and proposals. And there are some illustrations in the report, Madam Mayor, which show quite quickly, quite clearly, the impact of a professional, a well-considered professional architectural opinion. So I think, look, going forward, Madam Mayor, as we contemplate these dreadful developments that we've talked about in the TODs, hopefully the design panel can have some impact if we are to be confronted with these monstrosities. Through you to the General Manager, Madam Mayor, if I may just clarify that, would we expect that the design panel would be involved in these particular developments?
Well, the SDA process, I'm not sure, but certainly anything else that comes through our processes, including anything that goes to planning panel, the LEP requires it. Mr. Colbert, I don't know if you've got anything that you could add to that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there's a couple of assessment pathways available under HDAs, one of which might require the nomination by council of a representative on a design review panel of sorts, and the part of the resolution of this the recommendation in this report is to make our panel members available as representatives should they be required on state significant development panels.
Thank you. I live in hope.
Thank you.
That's a good answer. That concludes my my comments, Madam Mayor. I think this is nothing more than something which will continue to yield a favourable outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelden. Any further speakers? Councillor Bonham.
This recommendation. I just want to speak very briefly. I think it's so important, and Councillor Hazelden pointed out there was a gross understatement there about we continue to grow in high density development. I know this review panel only has a recommendation sort of status, but we were given a few examples of when the outcomes were improved because of their suggestions. This is all about people, housing development, homes. It's all about people. It's and these panels are there to help developers have a bit of a vision about what they're creating for human beings. It's not all about the bottom line, and I know the development. You can't do development if you can't make a profit, obviously. But I think once some of these developers are shown something more attractive that doesn't necessarily add cost, in actual fact, it can add a more desirability to their product, their final product, so that their buildings become more saleable. I think it's a great positive. So I'm all in favour of this review panel. All power to them, and I do support the recommendation. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any further speakers? No further speakers. Councillor Hazelden, your right of reply.
Thank you. Item 4, review of the operation of the Hills Design Advisory Panel. A motion moved by Councillor Hazel and seconded by Councillor Bonham. The recommendation contained in the report be adopted. All those in favour say aye. Those against? It's carried. Thank you, councillors. We now go to item 6, 2026-2027 Annual Community Grants and Arts, Culture and Events Grants. Myself, Councillor Uno and Councillor Blue are leaving the chamber. Councillor Damasi will take the chair.
Okay, councillors, item 6, the 2026-2027 Annual Community Grants and Arts, Culture and Events Grants. Councillor Cox.
I believe I had an amendment.
You got a second?
Well, wait, I haven't got my motion up.
Oh, okay.
There it is. Yes. Minor modification to point 1.
Yep.
If I have a seconder, I'll speak to it.
You want to read your
Oh,
amendment?
okay. Sorry, I'll read out. The motion is that Council endorses the recommended funding allocations for the community grants and arts, culture and events grants totalling $150,716.90 as set out in the confidential attachment 1, with the exemption of the community grant for All Together Now. Council commit up to $50,000. Council commit up to $50,000 per year over a 2-year period. Funding is provided recurrently from public art grant program funds for the design, construction and installation of heritage sculptures at Bella Vista Farm. And Council commit up to $10,000 from excess grant program funding to facilitate the installation of the Blue Tree sculpture, with funding limited to the installation and associated site works.
Well, thank you, Councillor Cox. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Salvaraj, thank you. Do you want to speak to your motion, Councillor Cox?
Well, yeah, it is somewhat begrudgingly that I move this motion. My preference would be we didn't have a grants program, but here we are, and I don't think I've got the numbers for that. There was just that one group that I thought was a bit objectionable to some of it, but broadly speaking, the grants do a lot of good. I think the community is capable of funding these things themselves directly, but again, that's not the debate today. And so I'm happy to move the motion and hope there's not too much debate.
Okay. Any further speakers?
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
If that's okay. Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, to the General Manager, well actually to Councillor Cox, if I may. Are you able to, it's just short notice to put this amendment to us, are you able to explain a little bit more in detail why you want to accept, like make an exclusion for the community grant for All Together Now? Are we, I mean, I'm not sure how much we're able to disclose from the memo. But it's just really short notice to kind of land on councillors to vote against giving this particular group money when we have no idea why you want to exempt them.
Just to go broadly, and I don't want to get too deep into it because, as you said, there are some confidential aspects, but in the non-confidential, it's an anti-racism workshop for community workers. I don't like anti-racism as a concept, as in I don't believe in being racist, but anti-racism is not that, it's the active... I feel that a lot of the time the end result of these sorts of programs is to actually make people find racism where there wasn't anything before, and it makes it like, it's the focusing on something that makes it worse. I don't think we have a problem with racism in the Hills, and I'm happy to be corrected if someone can bring me some serious evidence of it, but I've not seen it, and I don't think that we should be funding that. It also concerned me that a lot of the information on their website seemed to have quite a political bent to one side, and I don't think we should be funding one side of politics or the other.
Councillor Casby, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm still in a little bit of shock. I guess I thought that the panel, we put our faith in the panel, and they've obviously interviewed and like looked into all of these different community groups and made their decision. And I just think it's a little bit difficult to land this amendment on the rest of us who are not part of the panel. Is anyone part of the panel here? And hasn't been privy to those discussions. So I'm not happy with this amendment. I'm going to speak to the original motion. I'd like to congratulate all of the successful grant applications, all of the successful groups, sorry, to the grant applications. I think it's great to see funding going to such a diverse range of groups, all doing incredibly important things to support and connect and enrich our Hills community. I have to admit, though, I was really disappointed that the new public arts grant didn't have any entries. Perhaps we all need to work on raising awareness over the next few years that this new grant exists, because it's actually really exciting. I was looking forward to seeing some beautiful street art or murals popping up to enliven some of our public spaces. The Blue Tree Project for mental health awareness and suicide prevention is a very worthy initiative, and I'm glad to see Council going ahead with installing this. And the Heritage Trail of public artworks at Bella Vista Farm also has merit. It's important, though, to acknowledge our local history. I only hope, though, and would strongly recommend that this heritage trail is complete and it's balanced and it begins right at the start, commemorating pioneering figures like Elizabeth MacArthur and the Pearce family highlights an important chapter. However, presenting only European figures creates a single perspective narrative on a landscape with a much more ancient story. The open grassy woodlands that early colonial farmers prized for sheep grazing were actively shaped and maintained for tens of thousands of years through Darug custodianship, land stewardship, cool burning practices. Bella Vista Farm sits on a prominent hilltop that served as a natural lookout and a movement corridor between Parramatta, Toongabbie and the Hawkesbury region long before Old Windsor Road was surveyed. Agricultural expansion by colonial settlers relied on the dispossession of Darug land, their waterways and their traditional food sources. So commemorating settler successes alongside the impacts of traditional owners creates a more honest, a more educational and a more respectful heritage site. Modern heritage guidelines such as Heritage New South Wales frameworks and local government reconciliation action plans strongly encourage co-design with traditional owners to reflect multi-layered history in public reserves. And incorporating Darug history fosters inclusivity, cultural safety and local pride for present and future generations. So another question, if I may, would it be possible for officers to consult with local Darug traditional owners over the coming years to incorporate a First Nations cultural commemoration into the scope and design of the Bella Vista Farm Heritage Trail, whether it be a yarning circle or another Indigenous cultural element that provides a more complete story of place alongside our colonial agricultural history?
Mr. General Manager.
Mr. Chair, I think we're early in our development. I think the points will be taken on board, and as the project develops, come back to you with it, I think.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And just one last comment. As a fairly privileged professional white male, I think it's a little bit narrow-minded maybe to say that there's no racism in the Hills. So I think we really need to go and consult all of those minor communities. There are people that really do suffer horrendous racism. We've got a Royal Commission on at the moment, which I believe should have been covering all minorities and not just one specific group. So I can't support this amendment, and I'd urge councillors to support the original amendment in the business paper. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Casby. Any further speakers? Yeah, Councillor Bonham.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor, Assistant Deputy Chair. Councillors are now at arm's length in this process. We get confidential papers that explain and describe the comments that were made, the thinking that was behind the decisions that have been made with this. We're not at liberty to discuss them here in open council. But I think, and I'm just wondering what forum there could possibly be to discuss. We're not a rubber stamp is what I'm saying. We're not a rubber stamp, but I sort of feel with Councillor Casby that this is a little bit awkward. I think it could have come with a little bit of debate. I don't know how you'd address this because, as I said, we're arm's length from the panel decision making, and if we don't agree with anything, sort of we can thrash it out on the floor, but we can't really debate it in any meaningful way. So I'm just wondering whether we should defer this. Are we allowed to defer anymore? Could we have a discussion about this before we come to this vote, perhaps? I don't know. I'm just feeling a bit uncomfortable about, even though I have my own thoughts about it, but I just feel that it's a bit awkward. Does that make sense? Maybe the General Manager can speak to that.
Mr Chair, we can't defer to workshop on it.
No, right.
So what I can say is we've got the report, we've got the program, and we've got an attachment that shows the assessment of the panel with its recommendations. By its very nature, it has material in there that we can't release.
Yep.
But you'd have to form your view around the motion that's in front of you or against the material that I've been able to provide you. An option would be to defer that matter and pass the others. But we're in your hands.
Right. Okay. Well, it's not up to me to defer it or to... but I would... Well, if I ran on the comments... Sorry, if I had to make a decision on the comments, well, I would support Councillor Cox, but... that's it.
That's allowed.
Thank you.
You're allowed.
Thank you, Councillor Bonham. Any further speakers? Councillor Jackson.
I'm just going to make it clear I don't support this motion or the original motion anyway. I think under the current climate, with what's happening within the community and the economy and the struggles that many people are having, I'm just a bit uncomfortable committing even $50,000 over 2 years to sculptures, regardless of the history and everything else that goes with it. My understanding is as well that Bella Vista Farm and some of the heritage items that already exist on that property, in the words of the General Manager, not in this context but in a general context, struggles to wash its own face. So putting sculptures on there when we still could contribute potentially this amount of money or to assist in restoring the current history that's there, I would consider. Or it going to another worthy cause. I note the other items in here we do have somewhat limited information on, and I don't discount any of the organisations or the intention or the quality of the programs that they're putting forward. But yeah, I just struggle to support this at the moment. And as indicated by Councillor Cox, if it was his choice, he'd get rid of grants completely. I'm not completely on that boat yet in knowing some of the benefit that it can provide, but I'm just struggling at this point in time of being able to support this amount of money going to certain things in the community where potentially, under current circumstances, they could be going somewhere else. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Any further speakers? Councillor Cartwright.
Yeah, I too I'm completely uncomfortable with spending ratepayers, spending the grants actually, I would say, on statues, given I agree with Councillor Jackson. I don't normally agree with you, but on this one I'm with you. I agree that there's many in the community that are struggling to, with cost of living and investing money just on statues. I can't accept it, so I won't be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Cartwright. Councillor Hazelden.
Mr Deputy Mayor, I've always been uncomfortable with the issue of community grants because I think that there is, from what I've seen over the years, there is so much subjectivity in these decisions, notwithstanding who may or may not be on the panel. So I'm just particularly, I remain uncomfortable with the whole notion of community grants as a use of ratepayers' money. Thank you.
Any further speakers? Councillor Cox, you're right to reply.
Oh, commentary, I might want to amend this. I might get it through this time. The only, I guess, concerns I have is if you read through the grants programs, Councillor Casby, that one sticks out like a sore thumb. Everything else is about the football this or the tennis that or defibrillators or a festival. This is about a workshop to train community workers. It's this anti-racism concept, which again is largely from the far left, and as these people have on their website, part of their training is about identifying far right-wing misinformation and extremism. But nothing about the far left, nothing about Antifa, nothing about the other problems in society. It's very suspicious. I don't like it. And I take great umbrage at your comments directed at me about racism. You know enough of my story. You know who I live my life with and what I do. And to the idea that, I mean, if we're going to play the game of suggesting people may not know about racial problems or something, I suspect if we look at your family versus mine, we might have assumptions from people who make those sorts of assumptions, which are wrong, and it'd be much more in my favour, not yours. So I don't think that's something that should be brought into this.
Point of order. I think you're
What's your point of order?
That's the misrepresentation 10.23 of what I said. You said that there was no racism in the Hills. I was just correcting you.
Councillor Casby told me to reflect on, as a privileged white professional male.
We're all privileged white people in this room.
You
Well,
can
around
say
this
that.
chain
You
around-
may be right.
Well,
you may be wrong.
Remove
you
the
don't
white.
know people's
Remove the
stories.
white part, but
It's pretty racist.
We're all.
Yeah.
It's not racist.
Geez, you looked at people on their skin colour and identified them.
I think you're still misrepresenting what I'm saying.
And around this table, there are based on our political disclosures, a lot of people here are landowners and doing all right financially, and some of us appear to not be doing as well financially. So if we're going to talk about privilege, again, at this table...
Councillor Cox has got the floor.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. The point is that this is an outlier, it's an odd grant, and it's about training people to act a certain way. It's not in the same vein as anything else here. Although I've always said I don't like the grants program, if anything like that goes through, I'm all for just, I will redouble my efforts on that front. That's why I pulled it out. I think any impartial person reading this would have identified that as the most controversial. And if you read through it, you should have looked into it too. I think anyone, if you don't think that wording or what that is triggering to people on the political right, then yeah, that's on you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Item 6, the 2026-2027 Annual Community Grants and Arts, Culture and Events Grants. Motion was moved by Councillor Cox and seconded by Councillor Savaraj. All in favour say aye. Aye. Against?
Against.
Probably need division.
Division?
He hasn't called, so you could call for a division.
You're calling for division? Yeah. Okay, division will vote on the keypad.
This is for my motion.
Yeah, the motion as it is on
How did a whole lot of...
Okay,
There's one. Okay, hit him again.
One more time.
All votes are in, Mr Chair.
Okay, the motion is lost. So I'll just read for the recording. Voting for the motion was Councillor Bonham, Councillor Cox, myself, Councillor Damasi, and Councillor Savaraj. Voting against the motion was Councillor Cartwright, Councillor Casby, Councillor Gritsiva, Councillor Hazelton, and Councillor Cox, PSM. Not voting is Councillor Jetty, Councillor Uno, and Mayor Dr Michelle Byrne. Thank you.
So we have nothing before us, so we need an alternate motion.
So as we've got nothing before us now, we'll need an alternative motion.
Councillor Hazelton? Can I move that we abolish the grants? Am I allowed to move the alternate motion?
A question through you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Is it possible to get a bit of an understanding of possible next steps and what would happen if no motion is put up?
So it lapses for a motion, so we're better off having a motion. So the motion can be the motion in the business paper. Can't be the same motions we put up because that is lost. Sorry, Mr Chair, if I can assist.
Yep.
And then, or it can be a modified motion of the original motion. So I heard some and then that's something that's open to you, or something else.
Okay, do we have a new motion?
Okay, so if we can just
I'll move just point.
point. So that would be an amendment moved by Councillor Cox.
Okay.
Mr Chair.
So amendment by Councillor Cox. Do you want to read your motion, Councillor Cox?
Certainly, Councillor Indore, the recommended funding allocations for the community grants and arts and culture and events grants totaling $150,716.90 as set out in the confidential attachment 1 with the exception of the community grant for Altogether Now.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Bonham, thank you. Councillor Cox, would you like to speak to your amended motion?
Ever so briefly, I think we've covered it all. I did hear several councillors say they were concerned about spending the $50,000 over 2 years on sculptures. I hadn't considered that, to be honest, so I removed the sculpture parts.
Any further speakers?
Could I move an amendment, please, Mr Deputy Mayor?
Your amendment?
So my amendment would be to remove with the exception of the community grant for Altogether Now, but something to the effect of deferring that matter to a further discussion, if that's possible.
Will be only a further report.
A further report, if that's possible. So not excluding them altogether, but having some kind of mechanism to have further discussion with councillors so that we're all on the same page and we understand why the panel obviously recommended them for funding.
Okay, that's up to the mover. He wants to accept that.
So we're moving everything on block, we're not funding them, and we may have further discussion, which may lead to another motion later, but not necessarily.
Further report.
Right, but will the report be this chamber or?
Correct.
No, I'll take that into the
Okay, so
Sorry?
it have to be a foreshadow.
So,
Oh, it has to be foreshadowed?
Foreshadowed.
Sure.
Sorry, Mr Chair.
so with your so do we get a second for the foreshadow?
Not yet.
Okay.
So it only becomes a motion once there's no other motion.
Okay, fine. Okay, any further speakers?
Mr Chair. Are you asking us to defer the that one that Councillor Cox wants to exclude, so that next time we get more information in our confidential reports that we can make a decision on that particular item? Is that what the...
Yeah, I just need a bit more time to look into it. I don't think any of us have had, much time. I didn't realise Councillor Cox would have a problem. I didn't identify that as a particular problem. Didn't have enough time to look into that particular one. And I guess I was trusting that the panel knew a lot more than us. They interviewed them, and trusted their decision. So I think it's a little bit harsh to just make a decision on the fly without knowing all the details.
Okay.
Any further speakers?
Is this on the foreshadowed amendment?
No.
No.
This is on
The amendment.
Well, it's on the motion that's before you, so.
Your one.
It's the current motion. The current motion.
I just know on this, we're in a very difficult situation because of what I believe to be recent amendments and strong arming of us by the state government. To not be able to take things to workshops now and have further discussions, I take Councillor Casby's points about trusting the panel, but at the end of the day, we're the decision makers and we're the ones that are accountable for the money that's provided to different people within the community. And this isn't in any way disrespecting or lessening or making any judgment on the panel's process, because I was definitely a supporter of independence through that panel. And I absolutely stand to that. But without having an appropriate forum to be informed and have clearer information about what we're actually going to be debating, and having an understanding of what these proposals are and aren't, to get to this point, to have this understanding is extremely difficult for us as councillors to make this decision. I'm also very hesitant at the same time to bring this specific item to the floor. There's already been some heated debate around the topic of what this is, and I really don't want a racism or anti-racism motion specifically being brought on this and debated on its particular merits in isolation for that particular organisation. I don't think that they would necessarily appreciate that either. Obviously, with the difficulty in all of this, and this particular one has brought it to a head, I wonder whether it's reasonable to progress this with the exception of this particular one without it having to come back, and some further work be done in the background to support councillors on the next round of having adequate information for us to be able to make this decision. Or a forum to be able to ask questions and have discussions, noting that we're not allowed to do that on items that are coming on the agenda, which I didn't even know how it's possible to properly ask those questions. I don't know what a reasonable solution ultimately is, but I think if there is a desire for many on the floor to support grants in general, and then exclude this one for the potential that they can apply for this in the following rounds, would be potentially a wiser decision if you're inclined to supporting the grants, rather than potentially getting us in a position to completely knock them all out and having to go through a more challenging process to be able to consider them. I still stand to my point that it's a lot of money in this kind of environment. So don't intend to support it, but definitely would encourage councillors that if they feel strongly towards grants, to be able to allow other people within that have applied in the grants program to be able to carry on and do something with the monies that have been decided by the panel to allocate to them. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Just to answer your question, Councillor Jackson, because there is a confidential attachment, and we can't discuss that in open council, we can move to close council to discuss it this evening, if everyone's willing to do that.
I think that's potentially a wise decision to make in the current challenge that's being experienced. I'd get the feel that there's a number of councillors that would like to support the grants generally, and there's some challenges around this particular one. So in order to be able to debate that, I would think it's reasonable to consider that based on, due process.
Okay, thank you.
So on that, I'm happy to move for council to go into closed session to be able to address the items that are on the confidential attachment to the motion.
Just let me get clarification. So,
So I think, Mr Chair, the motion would be to move a motion to enter into closed session of council to consider the item on the grounds of clause 14.1D of the Code of Meeting Practice. That would be what you would have to move and second it and vote on.
would you be happy to move that motion?
I'm happy to move that.
We have that on the screen.
So we need a...
Yeah, have that on the screen.
Am I able to amend the foreshadowed motion?
Sorry?
Am I able to amend the foreshadowed
Let's
motion?
sort this one out first before we go on to that.
So it's a procedural motion.
Yeah, I just thought maybe it'll change the need to go into closed council if we change the foreshadowed motion.
I'd like to stand by the closed council purely because of the confusion and the challenge around this particular topic.
Let it get a seconder and then vote on that. And
Yeah. It's 14 point.
For reading 14.1. D of the Code of Meeting Practice. To discuss the item matter. A bit like we do in the law.
Okay. Councillor Jackson, are you happy with that motion?
We'll discuss.
Yeah.
Item 6.
To discuss item 6.
Yeah.
You need a second.
That's it.
So move councillor Jackson.
So, happy with that motion?
I'm happy with that motion.
Second.
Okay, do you have a seconder? Okay, thank you, Councillor Hasler.
Do I need to state my reasons, or is it?
No, it's a
fairly clear?
procedural motion,
Yeah.
so you put it to the vote.
All right, so we vote on that.
We've got a motion moved in.
So we've got item 6, the 2026-2027 annual community grants and arts, culture and events grants. We've got a new motion. Motion was moved by Councillor Jackson, PSM, and seconded by Councillor Haslen. The council move into closed council on the ground of clause 14.1D of the Code of Meeting Practice to discuss the item. To discuss item 6. Should be item 6, not the item 6. Yeah, that's better. All those in favour, say aye. Aye. Against? Okay, that's carried. Hazelton, and myself is not on there. It should be my...
Yeah, you come up as councillor.
Oh, okay, so myself, it should be Councillor Massey.
Sorry, Mr. General, is that an issue?
No, it reads that it's Councillor Damasi as the chair.
So myself as chair. So they voted for the motion. Voting against the motion was Councillor Casby, Councillor Grant-Seaver, Councillor Jackson and Councillor Salvaraj. Not voting was Councillor Blue, Councillor Jetty and the Mayor, Dr Michelle Byrne. And Councillor Uno, sorry.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well done.
I thought it was going to be something simple.
We probably just need to extend that motion, extend the time to finish business.
What if you don't want to? I'm done. Why didn't I have to sit through that? I'm just eating out the back. All right.
So we're at the tender now.
So we're going to
Item 9.
item 9, tender T26-0078, design and construction and bank stabilisation, retaining structures CH6400, River Road, Lower Portland, and CH 17300, River Road, Leeds. Councillor Blue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the motion as per the recommendation in the business paper.
Second by Councillor Jackson. You wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I won't speak too long on that item, but I recently attended last night I attended a meeting of the Hawkesbury River Users Group, who spoke at length about a number of issues within the Hawkesbury River area, and particularly some River Road works. So I was pleased to be able to advise them that those works were coming to tonight's meeting for acceptance of some tenders. Madam Mayor, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking on this. We've spoken about River Road over a number of years here, given that a lot of these issues have been caused by flooding and inclement weather conditions in that locality. But I do just want to take an opportunity to thank our staff for the work they've put into these. I know that River Road is probably, or has been up until recent times, one of the worst roads in the hills by way of risk and condition, not by any fault of council, just the nature of where that road is situated on the side of a cliff, if you like, and most of it often falls away into the river every time that river floods, which over the last 5 years or 6 years has happened on a period of 7 or 8 occasions. So the staff have been fantastic in scoping the work, applying for disaster grants, been successful in getting those grants, and moving forward with some what I would like to call betterment works, where not only are we fixing the problem that has been occurred by the flood or inclement weather, but we're also making sure that those road repairs are done in such a way that they're not likely to fail again, meaning that the risk is certainly greatly reduced and council can move on with work on other parts of that road. So I know that road is it's a vital piece of infrastructure for those in that community, and I know that for the length and the cost associated with maintaining that road, it is sometimes difficult to stomach, but we are where we are, and I think we're in a much better position now that we're able to fix some of these failure points due to the fantastic work of the staff. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Hazelton.
Madam Mayor, like Councillor realised some years ago, and I almost forensically look at all of these tender evaluations that are provided in our confidential evaluation report. And Madam Mayor, I just simply want to put it on record that I continue to be impressed with the probity that we exercise towards initially specifying, designing a project, and then evaluating tenders, and then most importantly, managing them properly and bringing it to a satisfactory budget conclusion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any further speakers? No further speakers. Councillor Blue, you're right to reply.
I'll waive that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Your Honour. Item 9, tender T26-0078, design and construction of bank stabilisation retaining structures. Got a motion moved by Councillor Blue and seconded by Councillor Jackson. The recommendation contained in the report be adopted. All those in favour say aye. All those against? No one's against. It's carried. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, under the Code of Meeting Practice, under section 18, there is time limit on council meetings. Meetings of the council and committee of the council are to conclude no later than 10 p.m. If business of the meetings are finished at 10 p.m, the council or the committee may, by resolution, extend the time of the meeting up to 11 p.m. Do I have a motion to move that way? Councillor Blue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move that Council extend the meeting to 11 p.m. to consider the remaining business.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Bonham. Anyone wish to debate it? It's very specific. It says up to 11 here. Just following the code. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? Thank you. It's carried. We now go to... Find my bit of paper. Item 10 now. Tender T26-0141. Reconstruction of Annan Grove Road between Windsor Road and Edwards Road, Rouse Hill. Councillor Blue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the motion as per the recommendation in the business paper.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Massey. You wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Blue?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, this is a motion that I have been looking forward to having come to this council for some time now. And whilst I am somewhat in shock at the cost of construction these days, I probably should have expected what was coming. But Madam Mayor, I just want to spend a bit of time talking about what this project is going to achieve. And apart from we need to accept the fact that it's going to be a little bit of a difficult area to move around in for a period of time while this construction occurs, short-term pain will certainly be the long-term gain. And I know that the community are desperate for this project to get started and certainly resolve some of those issues that are presenting themselves with traffic in this area, particularly with those leaving the Box Hill precinct. Generally put, the idea behind widening this part of Annan Grove Road is to take some of that traffic load from the Box Hill precinct onto Windsor Road and hopefully make their way to their place of destination, rather than funneling traffic up Annan Grove Road and causing more issues in the Kenthurst area and through Round Corner. Madam Mayor, as I said earlier, this isn't going to be an easy project, nor it is a cheap project, and it's not going to be one that's not going to come without inconvenience. But Madam Mayor, I just wanted to ask a question through you to the General Manager and perhaps through to Mr. Colbert. But obviously this is going to be a major arterial road now, and there will be a concrete median down the centre of Annan Grove Road, and I appreciate a lot of those businesses will be restricted to a left in, left out type operating arrangement. Do we have a rough idea as to when the sections of the water lane will be acquired so we can build that? Because that will then create the loop, if you like. So if you come left out of building A and you want to go to the building beside, you can do that loop rather than having to go onto Windsor Road and do a turnaround that way.
Through you, Mr. Colbert.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the timing isn't confirmed. However, the objective of the design team would be to procure the land and finalise designs in order that construction could commence on that loop road, coincide with the conclusion of the Annan Grove Road project, subject to traffic management considerations at the time.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Colbert. That's good news, and I appreciate none of that is set in stone, but I'm most pleased to hear that is the anticipation. So I think that's going to resolve some of the angst in that community by way of left in, left out type arrangement, which is perfectly understandable given that it's going to be a major arterial road. As part of this, Madam Mayor, obviously, as I said before, there's been a cost increase to this project from the original funding anticipation, but as we know, often when we have had these contribution plans, councils always put forward a much more realistic figure for what things have cost, and IPART seem to have a great tendency to pull that back, and I hope that this is just another example that they can use moving forward to show that the council were probably a little bit more on the right side of what things would cost. and appreciate that we're probably coming up for another CP15 review in the not too distant future, and hopefully be able to recoup some of this additional cost through that. But it does just go to show that council is in a position to approve the additional funds, subject to the motion this evening, to award this contract and move forward. And I am very pleased with the assessment, yet again, of council staff on the tenders. I won't go into that as it's confidential, but again, I am very pleased on how that has been undertaken. So again, thank you and congratulations to the staff. I look forward to getting this project off the ground, and as I said to the community at a recent community meeting, yes, you're just going to have to put up with the concerns up front while this construction project is undertaken. And in an ideal world, these type of projects will be done long before people move in, but as we know, we have a contribution system that is inherently broken, and we are where we are, and we need to make the most of what we have. So thank you, Madam Mayor, and I hope councillors are in a right mind to support this motion this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blue. Any further speakers? Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just very briefly, we see lots and lots of comments about this stretch of road, particularly Withers Road, and again, this has been a long time in coming, and as Councillor Blue said, it'll be some pain for a long-term gain, and this is going to be fantastic to actually get this done, and just showing that this council does take notice, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get these things approved and done because of what we don't see above ground. What's going to hold us up is what's under the ground, and that's probably one of the main reasons for this delay. But congratulations, Mr. Corbett and his team for getting this through, and hopefully we get to see some vast improvement on along Angrove Road there. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Any further speakers? No further speakers. Councillor Blue, your right of reply. Thank you. Right.
Thank you.
Item 10, tender T26-0141, Anna Grove Road, upgrade between Windsor Road and Edwards Road. I've got a motion moved by Councillor Blue and seconded by Councillor Massey. The recommendation contained in the report be adopted. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, it's carried. Councillors. We now go to the notice of motion. Item 12, notice of motion, policy framework for transparency, interactions with lobbyists, developers and external stakeholders. Councillor Casby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the motion in the business paper.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Gretzever.
Would you like me to speak to it?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In 2023, a motion similar to this was printed in the agenda, but a different motion was moved on the night. I spoke in support of the original printed motion and also called for a single, one-stop shop transparency document and a dedicated lobbying policy. But instead of acting, Council chose simply to write to the Office of Local Government and ask where their model code was up to in relation to recommendations from the ICAC. That was 3 years ago. The OLG hasn't released a model code and we still haven't got a reply to our letter. Lobbying and stakeholder engagement are normal parts of the democratic process. However, lobbying can also create corruption risks and undermine public confidence in decision-making due to perceptions of undue influence, bias and preferential access. It's so important that the public know who councillors and council staff are meeting with and what those meetings are about. Residents must be able to clearly see how and why decisions are made. So this motion asks for 3 simple measures above what council already does. 1, a clear policy to make sure all interactions between councillors and council staff with lobbyists and external stakeholders is transparent and contained in the one document. 2, a proactive open diaries framework for senior leadership. 3, a lobbying register published on our website. The response to our motion in the business paper here implies that Council is already doing enough. It points to a rather long reading list of 7 different codes and policies and claims that lobbying is covered somewhere inside that pile of documents. If a resident or a developer or a third-party stakeholder wants to know the rules of engagement in the Hills Shire, they shouldn't need a law degree and a lot of time on their hands to find and navigate through 7 distinct policy documents. The rules should be laid out in one place in plain English with zero ambiguity, and this would benefit councillors and staff as well. And having these 7 documents isn't anything special. They represent the mandatory baseline required of every single council in New South Wales under the Local Government Act. Councils like the Inner West, Newcastle, all have these baseline documents too. The difference is that they've realised standard rules leave blind spots. So they've established dedicated lobbying and open diary policies as an extra safeguard for their community. And this shows genuine leadership. A very relevant example was brought to our attention in the Herald last month. If Council had an open diaries policy back in 2020, perhaps the community would not have felt blindsided when plans for 3 single fields, including a cricket oval, were replaced without explanation by a proposal for a premier rugby union facility in Fred Caterson Reserve. Were our 7 policies enough to ensure residents knew who was meeting with councillors and council staff and why these decisions were made? The community doesn't think so. None of our 7 policies contain rules specifically governing lobbying. It shouldn't be up to residents to pay hundreds of dollars and wait months on freedom of information applications to find out what's going on behind the scenes. We need to take these extra steps now to ensure complete transparency in decision making and restore public trust. We only need to talk to our residents, read their emails and look at the comments all over social media to know that our current rules aren't enough. Our peak body, Local Government New South Wales, explicitly supports public lobbying registers, mandatory declarations and making those records open access by default. They also support ICAC recommendations requiring staff to disclose any attempts to improperly influence planning reports, giving our planners protections against behind-the-scenes pressure. Other councils, like Sutherland Shire, go even further by requiring staff to publicly log meetings with third-party lobbyists on operational matters. So saying the state government hasn't made us do it yet simply doesn't meet community expectations. And this comes at a time close to home when ICAC's Operation Rosny
An extension of time, moved by Councillor Cartwright.
Are in the headlines. I'm almost.
Second by Councillor Blue. All those in favour say aye.
I wasn't seconding.
You weren't seconding. Go by the seconder. Councillor Gretz-Seaver. All those in favour say aye. Against? That's last. Please finish up.
I'm almost finished. Okay. Repeatedly warning local government about the corruption risks of undocumented lobbying and unmonitored access. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can adapt already working and adopted policies of other councils. And we can do more. Our community expects us to do better, so I can't see any other option than for councillors to support this very timely and relevant motion tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too strongly support this notice of motion. Transparency and accountability are not optional extras in local government. They are fundamental to maintaining the trust and confidence of the community we were elected to serve. There is nothing inherently wrong with councillors meeting with developers, sporting organisations, community groups, businesses or other stakeholders. In fact, engagement is an important part of our role. However, when those interactions have the potential to influence decisions involving development, public land, public money or community assets, then the public has every right to expect openness and transparency around those interactions. And frankly, you only need to look at the sheer debacle surrounding Fred Caterson Reserve to understand why this matters. That issue has demonstrated precisely why dealings with external stakeholders need to be transparent, appropriately recorded and ultimately accountable to the community. This motion is not about preventing councillors from having conversations or engaging with stakeholders. It is about making sure those interactions are conducted openly, appropriately and with safeguards that give our community confidence that decisions are being made in the public interest. A clear policy framework, appropriate record keeping, greater disclosure and consideration of open diaries and a lobbying register are sensible and reasonable measures. And given the broader scrutiny surrounding lobbying, integrity and transparency in local government, we should not wait for controversy before strengthening our standards. We should be proactive and set the standards ourselves. Ultimately, this comes down to something very simple. If our processes are sound, our dealings are appropriate, and our decisions can withstand public scrutiny, then greater transparency should never be something we fear. It should be something we welcome. Our residents entrust us with significant decisions with their neighbourhoods, their public assets and their money. With that trust comes an obligation to be accountable. For those reasons, I strongly support this notice of motion and commend it to the Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. Further speakers? Councillor Gratzeva.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think everyone already touched a lot. I just provide some additional comments. I look at the practice across Australia. Actually, the Queensland, all councillors must have such type of lobbying policy. So I think it's the best practice to have. By this motion, we don't want to say that we're non-compliant. We're compliant council. I just personally believe that this policy will give us some protection and as well increase public confidence. And the last one, I don't think this is the motion for debate. It's just asking prepare the policy and then we can debate the policy next time. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Cox and then Councillor Hazelden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to note that Fred Catt has come back. It won't stay away. It's somehow got on the agenda. I'm very concerned about this motion, the false nexus that they're going for in the media about, the people from a sporting code met with the council staff. Through you to the General Manager, I assume at the same time the council is also meeting with the people in charge of football and basketball and various other codes.
Madam Mayor, I think the question is rhetorical. I think local government being the closest to the community, we meet with lots of people.
Yes. And the implication that there's somehow some corrupt lobbying going on or something, like the envelopes of money or something. Like the idea that this code has that kind of money is laughable. But anyway, I think that councillors going onto the media and fanning the flames and not knowing the answers to these questions can fan the flames and can create concerns in the community. If the people who should know better go out there and assure them, well, there is something suspicious about all this, yeah, it should be looked into. I would challenge the people bringing this, that once again, this all ties back to Fred Catt. This is not about good policy. If they can bring up any other issue in council this applies to that's not a pet project of theirs, that it would benefit, that'd be great. But there isn't one. Also, Councillor Gratzeva, councillors in Queensland are much closer to state MPs almost. They're paid essentially a full-time wage. They're very different in terms of what they control and what they have to do than us. They have planning powers, they approve contracts, they do all sorts of things. It's far more than we do. I think the General Manager's response here to the notice of motion fairly well covers that, yes, we are on top of all these things. We have done things since 2023, as noted in the Code of Conduct from 2025, etc., etc. There's so many things here with dates well beyond the date that Councillor Casby implied we'd stopped at. So we already have extensive records policies, and adding this lobbying register would just be one more hassle for people in public office who pay nowhere near enough to do the amount we do already.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelden.
Mayor, I normally speak ad hoc, but this particular motion brought something else out in me, so I have prepared some notes. Madam Mayor, I don't support this motion, which I note has been brought to us by Councillor Casby from the Greens and supported by 2 members of the Australian Labor Party. None of us in this chamber would argue against the truism of item 1 of this recommendation, Madam Mayor, because that describes the way in which we operate. but that motion goes far beyond that in seeking to overlay council with even more bureaucracy in pursuit of an imaginary absence of transparency. The motion is nothing more than mischief-making. The motion, if adopted, is likely to incur both direct and indirect costs by causing staff resources to be diverted toward unnecessarily reporting on issues which are, as we shall see, already well covered. Council is already under the microscope of the local Office of Local Government, the Government Audit Office and our own ARIC, the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. Additionally, the gaze of a free press and the ICAC, together with the whistleblowing laws, provides additional comfort to ratepayers that extensive and independent oversight hovers over council, its executive and indeed all staff. The effect of this extensive and relentless scrutiny is forensically described on page 266 of the report, and the community should take even further comfort from the recent audit by Centium. Centium is an independent body commissioned by our own ARIC, which did an independent audit of our audit activities. Let's remind ourselves of the governance framework which sits across council. There are 7 items listed on page 266, Madam Mayor, starting with the Code of Conduct and ending with the Statement of Business Ethics. Should the Minister, through his Office of Local Government, decide on further reforms, which we've discussed this evening, this council will, as it has always done, give proper consideration to any request for comment and will subsequently give full weight to any change in compliance with the legislation. In demonstrating probity, we repeatedly see councillors, as we did this evening, Madam Mayor, absenting themselves from debate for the flimsiest of reasons at the merest hint of a conflict of interest or pecuniary interest. For now, we are conducting ourselves within the law, within regulation, and with utmost personal integrity in executing our responsibilities under the Local Government Act. No more bureaucracy is needed. Our legal fees, the ratepayers' legal fees, this year are more than $500,000 over budget, and the last thing we need is a further diversion of staff resources to pointless outcomes. Madam Mayor, we all know the origin of this argument, this motion tonight. It is part of the unrelenting and misguided attacks from a small group of residents whipped into a frenzy by activist leaders set against the development of greatly needed sporting facilities at Fred Catterson Reserve, which are targeted to meet the needs of our burgeoning population. The huge numbers imposed upon us by state government, seemingly heedless of the need to provide infrastructure commensurate with the needs of a growing population. How many times, including this evening, Madam Mayor, do we shout out about this issue of fundamental importance? No effort has been spared in throwing up impediments. We've had the platypus, we've had koalas, we've had trapped wallabies, owls, snails, urban runoff, bright lights, traffic, high fences. Where is the end of all this trail of red herrings, Madam Mayor? Across all of this has been an undercurrent of accusations of sinister behaviour by council, which I personally deeply resent. I've been a councillor for 11 years, Madam Mayor, during which time I've seen many robust debates and many polarising issues, but I have never witnessed such division as we now see in this chamber. This constant attack on council's processes and probity casts a pall over all of us and gives nourishment to a minority who thrive in disruption and attacks on the establishment, even accusing us on occasion of corrupt behaviour. Councillors Casby, Cartwright and Gretseva, Madam Mayor, should reflect carefully on the points I have argued, stop wasting time on spurious arguments and start thinking about constructive ways to address the infrastructure voids which federal and state governments continue to impose upon this great community. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelden. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I strongly support transparency, integrity and accountability, but this motion is unnecessary and duplicates safeguards Council already has in place. Council already has comprehensive codes of conduct, conflict of interest rules, planning policies and record-keeping requirements. Council has already undertaken ICAC gap analysis, ARIC reviews, policy improvements and councillor training. There is no legislative requirement for council to introduce this proposed lobbying framework, and the Office of Local Government has not yet established a statewide framework. The proposed open diary, registers and additional reporting would create more bureaucracy and administration costs without any evidence that council's existing system is failing. Councils must remain accessible to residents businesses, community groups and stakeholders. Most importantly, the motion's author has previously raised this issue for political purposes and mischief. So I agree with what Councillor Hazelden had to say there. Rather than because there is an identified governance failure at the Hillshire Council. Good governance is not about constantly creating more policies. It's about properly implementing the policies we already have. Council has strong governance, transparency and accountability measures in place. This motion duplicates existing arrangements, adds bureaucracy and is unnecessary. I therefore cannot support it.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Any further speakers? Councillor Uno?
Madam Mayor, a question through to Councillor Gritseva, who I see to be one of the signatories of this motion, which surprises me, Madam Mayor, due to her expertise in audit and finance. What costs, Councillor Gritseva, do you anticipate these measures to be burdened onto this council?
Through to you, Councillor Gritseva, if you wish to answer.
I didn't get the question through you to Madam Mayor. Which cost? What do you mean cost?
With all these measures, have you costed these measures with our expert finance staff?
So this is why we asking in a motion, provide the report and policy, and then we can debate and consider costing. This is not about the costing at the moment. And as it's been multiple times triggered and escalated by ICAC, as an example in the business paper, so I believe, for me, as an auditor, I must support, and I who actually should draft such motions, I'm thankful to Councillor Casby, but I'm absolutely in support of it.
Thank you, Councillor Gritseva.
How about a question through to the General Manager. Ballpark figure here, how much headcount do you potentially think that this could actually add?
Madam Mayor, that's always difficult to measure. But if I can just put it in these terms, depending on how many interactions, diaries, it might increase the head count around the administration of the senior exec and councillors by 1 FTE. Hard to know though.
Madam Mayor, I was able to find that answer with a simple question to the General Manager. Potentially 50% to 1 FTE. Average salary, let's call it around $100,000. A question through to Councillor Gritseva, Madam Mayor. Over 10 years, $1 million. What playground are you cutting from the residents of East Ward to actually fund this?
Through to you, Councillor Gritseva. Should you wish to answer?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we don't have numbers. I can't discuss it. I will be discussing when I have the numbers.
Thank you. Councillor Uno.
I would have anticipated that an auditor with the expertise of Councillor Gritseva to have done her homework before bringing such a motion before this chamber, Madam Mayor. Now, Councillor Gritseva also stated that the public have a lack of trust or confidence in this council. A question through to the group manager, Mr. Ireland. What was the latest survey results of where the governance was rated within the actual community, Madam Mayor?
Through to you, Mr. Ireland.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we consistently rate over 80%. The most recent from my memory was 87%. We have also increased our DA surveys, which is now sitting at 67%. We anticipate that obviously adding to our satisfaction overall here at Council.
Thank you. Councillor Uno.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With a few simple questions through a few of our expert group managers and general manager, we were able to ascertain that this council does not have a governance problem or a perception problem with our community. It's very clear to see that we are completely transparent with our our annual plans, with our budgets through that are completely transparent, through the evidence that we have some of the lowest council rates in the Sydney metropolitan area. We run a tight ship at the Hillshire Council. We run a fiscally responsible council. And with our levels of bureaucracy, where currently we've got as Councillor Cartwright always states, we've had the state government, which oversees local government, that has been Labor under Chris Minns for the last 3 years, and we've got quite an incredibly active local, the Minister for Local Government, the Honourable Ron Honig, which is incredibly active within our sector. He has not stated with his latest code of meeting practice that this is required. The Honourable Member, Mr Honig, spoke for 35 minutes at the recent Local Government New South Wales Awards on Thursday, and he did not mention this once in his speech over 35 minutes. So if the New South Wales Government doesn't believe that this is a problem, and the Office of Local Government doesn't believe this is a problem, why is Councillor Gretseva, Councillor Casby and Councillor Cartwright wanting to add bureaucracy and red tape to the running of this incredibly well-run council? We run balanced budgets because we take a prudent financial position to ensure that we don't burden our residents and we don't burden our ratepayers with unnecessary red tape. And unfortunately, this motion today just adds layers to that. And I think what we saw with the response from the General Manager, we've got overlapping layers where we've got adequate protections for the council body and for the residents within the Hillshire Council. And unfortunately, the 3 councillors that have brought this to us have not taken adequate steps to cost and to evaluate the importance of this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Uno. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'll go through the particular points of the motion and indicate my kind of feedback on those, and then some further points kind of outlined in point number 3. I don't think there's any dispute from anybody about point number 1 of wanting open, fair and transparent decision making, and that it is fundamental to public trust. In item 2, I think they clearly outlined the effectiveness of ICAC, especially in the updates that they provided in 2024 and the lobbying of local councillors identified here in 2006. Councillor Casby and Councillor Cartwright referenced current ICAC proceedings and effectively directly connected with lobbying and councils. I can only suspect, Madam Mayor, that ICAC will make some recommendations that we will absolutely take seriously, especially because some of the allegations contained in there are relevant to the Hills. As outlined in the report, the Council has always reviewed recommendations from the ICAC and looked at where our gaps are and to be able to fix those. And because of the proceedings currently, I wouldn't want to get ahead of ourselves in developing anything that may come up as part of recommendations through that particular process. And to be honest, I'm quite shocked by many of the things that have come up. And I can only imagine with the timing that they've allocated for this particular inquiry that more is to come. And definitely wouldn't want to be, as indicated in point number 3, preparing any type of policy before the appropriate agency is able to hand down recommendations. And I also suspect that with those recommendations, the Office of Local Government will be looking at them pretty seriously and also considering what should be placed into the Code of Meeting Practice and the Code of Conduct for councillors, and also hopefully an update of the lobbying for local government councillors, which I absolutely agree should or would benefit for some updating. Madam Mayor, in point number 3, it talks about the scope beyond third-party lobbyists and including property developers, corporate in-house lobbyists, planning applicants, consultants, land assembly, interest groups, sporting groups and members of parliament. But I notice it excluded action groups, Madam Mayor. And the reason why I'm so interested in that is not just the matters that have come up quite persistently, but Councillor Casby indicated that, you know, if we had open books in 2020, there wouldn't be any confusion about the fields. I think, Madam Mayor, if we had open books in 2021, we'd be able to understand a little bit better the interactions between some of the councillors in the Fred Catterson Action Group. There was some election material developed by this group, specifically outlined at the bottom, that endorsed each one of the councillors essentially, or spoke favourably of them in that election material that actually signed this particular motion tonight, Madam Mayor. And it says authorised by, I won't state the name, but it says 1 Elizabeth MacArthur Drive, Bella Vista. I decided to Google that and found out that that's the head office for ResMed. I was quite concerned when I looked at this and was worried that ResMed was potentially involved in lobbying of council or councillors, or had a vested interest in a particular outcome, especially in the context of Fred Catterson, which on this particular election material clearly outlines the concerns raised by that. That same group, Madam Mayor, was involved heavily in handing out election material and attempting to influence the vote of members within our shire. I haven't seen, I note the points from Councillor Cartwright and Councillor Casby about the debacle of Fred Catterson, and that all interactions with council should be transparent, documented and open to the public. And as yet, Madam Mayor, I haven't seen any open, transparent and documented interactions between the councillors endorsed through the election and also between them and the Fred Catterson Action Group, especially with the recent media videos and other things that have been posted by that particular group.
Meeting extension time, moved by Councillor Blue, second by Councillor Massey. All those in favour say aye. Against, continue.
Madam Mayor, I note the concern from other councillors about this purely being focused on that. I can only see what's available in the public, and with all of these particular materials, it seems like that there is a significant lobbying agenda from the Fred Catterson Action Group and other groups on specific councillors without any clear documentation or information about any of those meetings, or even potentially any agreements between that group and those councillors in return of support. Whether it's either, and I have no idea, monetary, or whether it was contribution to those pamphlets in being able to support them and get them endorsed to become elected. So, Madam Mayor, I'm absolutely open and would support transparency. I think we're jumping the gun in front of ICAC, but at the same time, I think those that are calling for transparency should absolutely be as open and transparent as possible. I also note in here, Madam Mayor, there's no indication around third-party lobbyists of any type of relationships with anybody in the media, including editors of local magazines, and any interactions that happen between those particular groups and information coming from council. So, Madam Mayor, absolutely support transparency 100%. Once we get some advice and recommendations from council, and invite all those that are willing to sign this to be absolutely open and transparent about their engagements and activities with lobbyist groups in the Hills. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Jenney and then Councillor Jackson. Oh, sorry, Councillor Blue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, the Council has witnessed a persistent and concerning pattern of conduct from Councillor Casby, involving repeated attempts to cast suspicion on the work, actions and integrity of not just council staff, the general manager, the mayor and the fellow councillors. Notably, this scrutiny has not been applied evenly across the board. It has been repeatedly been directed at the councillors affiliated with one particular political party, the Liberal Party. This pattern is difficult to dismiss as coincidental and raises legitimate concerns about whether these attacks are motivated by political affiliation rather than the proper scrutiny of council's businesses. This constant attack, accusations, prepared speeches, casting suspicion by counter-questioning like, "Are you sure? Is this true? Have you got it verified from an unbiased third party? Questioning like these have done a few things for sure, and those few things have been, first, wasted precious council's time. Wasted council staff's time that I can for sure say that one councillor thought they don't get paid for Tuesday night meetings. Third, delayed important programs to be delivered on time towards our residents and towards the council as such. Important items were pushed to workshop, which were actually an outcome from a workshop.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Councillor No.
Sorry.
Point of order.
I'm just, yeah, point of order, Madam Mayor. I'm just 10.25, Madam Mayor, of the code. I'm just mindful of time, Madam Mayor, and I'm going to ask for the matter be put, as we've had 2 for and 2 against. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to interrupt another councillor, and I'm terribly
That's
sorry.
okay, Councillor.
Councillor Jetty, I just don't want this to be dragged over for another fortnight.
I'm in your hands.
We do have to finish up by 11, don't we? We do have to finish by 11, so move procedural motion.
Okay. Can he move it while she's speaking? I thought I had to wait till she's finished.
I think it's been accepted.
2 minutes.
You've got 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Important items were pushed to workshop which were actually already an outcome of workshop. Such actions are detrimental, casting aspersions destroy the working machinery of a robust organisation. The problem lies with such councillors who, instead of working for the residents, have a personal agenda. This witch hunt got to stop. It got to stop now. Residents have the right to know why these elected members are eating into council's finances, which is actually our ratepayers' money. Residents also have the right to know what entitled them to waste council's money in legal costs and who is funding them. I remind Councillor Casby that it is our residents' money, and I vehemently oppose this notice of motion, which is irregular, baseless, and just unnecessary and feeding into their own personal agenda. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Put the motion to be put. Procedural had 2 for, 2 against.
A point of order, code 10.20, I do get a right of
Yes,
reply.
but it's procedural motion to put the motion.
Yeah.
All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against. Okay, we go to Councillor Casby's right of reply.
Councillor Blue.
Can we have an extension of time just to allow this right of reply so we can finish this debate?
10
I don't want to carry it over for 2 weeks. 5 minutes. Moved by Councillor Blue, second by Councillor Bonham. All those in favour? Against? Okay, please. Your right of reply, Councillor Casby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So much to respond to.
We got 5 minutes.
Yeah. Look, our job as councillors is to stand up and be the voice for our residents. And these residents didn't have a voice when this master plan went through during COVID restrictions. So I feel we're absolutely doing our job to stand up and put the residents' case to you all, instead of fobbing off their emails and their conversations. Now, I am somewhat disappointed at the dramatisation of the impact on councillors' time. Yes, we are overworked and underpaid, but when it comes to transparency, it should be absolute top of our agenda. Why would we not take the extra steps to ensure residents can have the utmost trust in our decision-making process? An open diaries policy is an off-the-shelf, low-cost administrative process already used by councils like the Inner West, Newcastle and Sutherlandshire. The open diaries part of the policy is only focused on the senior exec officers, the GM, the mayor, the group managers, who hold massive delegated authority and formal meetings with commercial lobbyists and developers and other external stakeholders. We're not talking about informal chats with residents at a community event. The reputational and legal costs of losing public trust far outweigh the minor cost and time taken to upload calendar diary entries or fill in a disclosure log. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can adapt already working and adopted policies of other councils. And yes, we may be compliant with state law, but our council's motto is to strive for better things. It doesn't say to settle for minimum statutory compliance or to wait until the state government makes us. Compliance with minimum legal baselines is not leadership. Every council in New South Wales has these standard policies, but doing just enough minimum compliance has so far failed to protect public trust. Standard record keeping under the State Records Act doesn't tell the public who met with senior leadership off the record months before a major planning proposal was drafted. And I think publishing a quarterly summary of high-level meetings is a small price to pay to protect council's reputation. Yes, the Lobbying of Government Officials Act doesn't apply yet to local government, and the Office of Local Government hasn't issued local guidelines yet. But as I said, Local Government New South Wales says in their submission that they, as our peak body, want councils to take action on public registers and declarations now without waiting for state legislation, which is too slow. As for the comment about mischief, well, that's just disappointing that this well-intended motion is seen this way. Our community wants this. It's very timely, and it's in the public interest that lobbying is conducted in accordance with community expectations of transparency, integrity, and honesty. And Councillor Haselden, it is a large section of the community that are very, very disappointed by Council's decision to construct a rugby union facility. If we come back to the corruption prevention recommendations by ICAC, undocumented lobbying, paid advocacy, unmonitored access to public officials, the ICAC's view is that appropriate lobbying is normal, but it should be disclosed, it should be fair, and it should not undermine public confidence in impartial decision making. Public officials can engage with stakeholders, but the public is entitled to know what lobbying is taking place and who is involved. None of our 7 baseline governance policies contain dedicated rules specifically governing lobbying. They enforce general statutory baselines, but it doesn't duplicate the policies as far as I can see. There's no definition of lobbying. We need clarification here. There's no public lobbyist register. There's no mandatory meeting declarations, no proactive open diaries, and no staff disclosure for operational lobbying.
Moving extension of time. Moved by Councillor Cartwright, second by Councillor Gretziva. All those in favour say aye.
We have an
Yes. Ask you to finish up.
I'm almost finished. We have an active ICAC inquiry. We have widespread community discontent. Voting down a dedicated lobbying and transparency policy sends a very damaging message, and our community expects us to do better.
Thank you. We've got a motion moved by Councillor Casby and seconded by Councillor Gretziva. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against? It's lost.
Division, please.
Okay, we've got 3 standing for a division. Please be seated. Councillors, you vote on your keypads. All votes are in. That motion is lost. But I will read the names of councillors voting for and against for the tape recording of proceedings. Voting for the motion is Councillor Cartwright, Councillor Casby and Councillor Gretziva. Voting against the motion is Councillor Blue, Councillor Bonham, Councillor Cox, Councillor Damasi, Councillor Hazelden, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Jetty, Councillor Severage, Councillor Una and myself, Mayor Dr Byrne. Definitely lost. Thank you, councillors. Meeting closed at 11:06. Thank you, councillors, council officers and members of the public. Good night.